understand the geography of it, in terms of like what the concentrated centers are, how that changes and shifts as you expand outwards from those concentration centers. I want to understand the fact that it's like a civilization that has been a powerful one for like a very long time. It has a history of technological innovations across time, ancient culture, all of these things. What does that mean in context of, me buying a chocolate bar at a convenience store today? How has that evolved over time? And like,
I can give you an observation that you might find interesting. Which is basically every major city in the world outside of China has a Chinatown. Tokyo has a Chinatown.
Right.
Seoul has a Chinatown.
Yeah.
And there's a way in which the Chinese like cultural package, the civilizational like cultural package, is incredibly sticky. It's incredibly invariant. And there's these ways that like the characters, the language, the way that you have this kind of, the set of characters, the ideographs, the kind of like all works together in a very effective, holistic way that persists across time. And in many ways, it's very similar to what I think of as like the Jewish identity package. You know, the Jewish identity package, it's persisted similarly across like thousands and thousands of years. It persists even when Jewish people move to very different places, many, many generations down. Maybe they adopt the language of the place, and yet somehow there's something that makes them distinctively Jewish 10 generations later. And
it's also like the most pronounced. Like Chinatown is it's the most pronounced kind of pocket I find often in these cities. Well, maybe that's a North American thing, but
it's you can tell even if you're in like Tokyo and you go to the Chinatown, you can tell you're suddenly in Chinatown, even though there's like huge overlap. Like the language even starts to look the same in many ways.
So I went to Japan a bunch of times, and I've never been to the Chinatown there. Yeah. By the way, this is why I said I can't do it. Like, this is what I mean. So have you been to this place?
So I actually haven't. I've seen this on Google Maps. So I've seen similar images to this, which is how I kind of know that it exists, etc.
Yeah.
I've been to Chinatowns
Go to the
in
Wikipedia.
like other East Asian cities though.
It was established in the late 19th century. It has a population of 3,000 to 4,000 people. Yokohama Chinatown is the largest Chinatown in Japan, larger than both Kobe Chinatown and Nagasaki Chinatown. There are roughly 250 Chinese owned. So how does this compare in size to Chinatown in Toronto, for example? Well, population of 3,000 for the
tiny compared to Toronto. And also Toronto has like multiple Chinatowns. You've got the one along Spadina as well as East Chinatown, which are like two different ways.
What's the main one? Spadina?
In some sense, Spadina is is the continuation of the original Chinatown, or the closest thing to the original Chinatown. But then also, if you think of like areas in Markham, which are predominantly Chinese.
Right. There's a lot here.
Yeah.
Damn. Let's see. That's okay. Yeah. So what does that mean then? Like, what does that mean? Oh, it would mean that there's like a general understanding of the symbols and culture. Like, it's been around for long enough that, is that what it is?
Yeah. I think, there's something about this like civilizational cultural package, and I think a lot about how it's similar in both Judaism and in Chinese civilization, that there's a kind of coherence to it. It all works together in some ways. It's all self-reinforcing. It has something that allows for that culture, that civilization to reproduce itself, to be continually generative in some fashion. So when I think about like this kind of like ancient culture and kind of how it persists, I think a lot of people would, I think there's a lot of like skepticism that ancient cultures or ancient civilization can in fact have this long-term impact on how people operate and how society organizes itself. I think that it's actually reasonable to have that kind of skepticism, but I also think things like the fact that all these Chinatowns exist, that the Chinese cultural package is so pronounced, implies to me that there are some interesting things happening over much longer timescales there.
Yeah. I wonder, that's interesting. How has, like, what is, so there's a couple things that hit for me there. So like, one is that if the culture is, like, if you look at these visuals, right? Like, if you go to some of these visuals, like, let's just pick, okay, so this is in Japan. Okay, so let's look at I think like the biggest Chinatown in the world is in New York City, right?
That would make sense.
Yeah, okay, so let's look at that one first. Okay, so I have some dumb questions.
I probably have some very dumb answers.
Okay, so let's go. How different is this than what China actually looks like? In the sense that, like, cause like, how much of this is like, because if you look, there's like a very pronounced kind of aesthetic here. They have like, even in the Tokyo images, they have like those these kind of like older looking ancient kind of like thing. I wonder, and how much of that is like different than like what China actually looks like today. Because I think like one of the things that I personally think is, I think I don't have any understanding of like what China is actually like, because a lot of times when I talk to some people, they say like, hey man, it's one of the most futuristic places I've ever been. It's like, you know, and so I think, yeah, like I think there's like some kind of like disconnect, right, in terms of like what our understanding of what's happening there versus like what is actually happening there.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Yeah.
How does that relate to?
So, just one note as I speak is that the last time that I lived in China was in 2014 or 2015, and things have changed a lot since then, both in terms of they've kept growing at like 5-6% GDP growth, and so, you know, over 10 years that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
But then also things in terms of how the society is organized have changed. I visited Shenzhen in 23.
Yeah. 2023.
Yeah. So I've seen like what Shenzhen looks like. More recently.
What is it like?
Have you been to Austin?
Yeah. A while ago, but yeah.
So like, imagine if
6-7 years ago.
Austin, in terms of
Holy
the way.
Shit.
So imagine if Austin, in terms of the way that the city is laid out and the kind of spatial experience of the city, etc. So it's kind of like the similar kind of vibe in terms of structurally to the way that Austin is.
Interesting.
And also the weather's sort of similar to Austin. That's a stretch, but like sort of similar to Austin. But Austin had all been built within the last 15 years. So everything was brand new.
Yeah.
And was, PPP adjusted, like much richer. So if you had a city like Austin, but with everything brand new, parks and public infrastructure, transportation, etc., is pristine.
This place looks beautiful, man.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The one thing I'd say is that it's gorgeous, but it's brand new, and so it's kind of high modern, right? It's a grid. It's structured. It doesn't have that kind of textured beauty that if you go to Vienna or you go to Paris or something like that. And maybe in Shenzhen in particular, there's none of that because it's totally brand new. If you go to areas in Shanghai or Beijing, there you'll still find those kind of textured old, kind of beautiful ancient parts.
Yeah.
In a place like Shenzhen, they have one of the coolest things that you see in a place like Shenzhen that you don't see at all in, at least I don't see it at all in places like North America or even in Europe, is that they'll recreate an area that feels like the textured past. So in Shenzhen, there'll be like some corner where they'll build from scratch a old style fishing village.
Oh.
And it'll be like all brand new buildings, but it'll be in the precise architectural style and street layout and things like this from, prior to this period, prior to like modernity.
Really interesting.
And so there's kind of an honoring of that past. It feels a bit like, it feels a tiny bit kitsch, when you're there, because it's not actually, it's like brand new. It's like Disneyland-esque.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a little Disneyland-esque, but
like this specifically or the whole city?
No, these specifically.
Yeah,
these areas where you like, okay, this feels a little Disneyland-esque, but in some sense that's great. Like it's still an honoring of the past. It's still like presenting that you get this sense of what the streets are like and everything. It's really cool.
Are there there's like a lot of startups and stuff there? Do you sense that as you walk through, or is it like, you know what I mean? Like what is the general, like when you're walking through the area, like what are you generally aware of?
So when I
like, does it just feel like you're a regular city, or?
So it depends a little bit on where you
and like
are.
how good are the coffee shops and?
So when I visited Shenzhen, it was for a single day. I didn't see a lot of the areas where you have kind of those startup things. I can talk to when I lived in Foshan, which is very close to Shenzhen. It's part of the Pearl River Delta. Fun fact, this will just to ground some things here.
Yeah.
The Pearl River Delta is maybe worth pulling up on a map. It's the end of the river, the Pearl River. And on one side of it is Macau, and on the other side of it is Hong Kong. So it's kind of it's in like the south of China there, and if you see on like
the second image, Tommy.
So on one side you've got Hong Kong. On one side you've got Macau, and what you got to understand is that like from Macau to Hong Kong in a circle, it's an urban area. It is a single continuous urban area, pretty much.
Can you point to it on here?
Things. So.
Oh yeah, okay. It's a continuous urban area.
It's a single continuous
urban
area. So what I mean by that is I lived in Foshan, which was like Foshan, and when I was leaving, I took a bus from Foshan to Hong Kong, and I never left city.
Oh really?
It's about 150 million people.
You never left the city?
I never left the city.
Like, meaning like you never saw anything that wasn't a city?
Yes.
What the fuck?
And so this kind of like whole, like there's parks and things, and there are areas where like, oh, you're going through this kind of one protected area.
But it's a noticeable. It's a thing.
It's a chosen area that is like protected basically. And so the whole, it's hard. This whole area is basically one urban area with about half the population of the U.S.
174 kilometers.
And if you go into satellite
the whole
view,
area is about the population of the U.S.
Yeah, like half the population.
But still, of the like US, that, just this kind of area.
Yeah. So if you go to the satellite view, you'll see how it's kind of urbanized.
Left corner.
Yeah.
Traffic. No, I don't think that's what you want. I think you want terrain, right?
Yeah, like satellite. Oh no, I think you double click. If you just click satellite, yeah.
Oh, okay. Whoa. Holy shit.
And here, one of the cool things is, you wouldn't even imagine this because Hong Kong is such a dense, massive city.
Yeah.
If you look on this, it's one of the greenest areas because they have huge
Hong
amounts
Kong?
of like,
because
they have these huge amounts of protected land that they like haven't built on. But if you like zoom out, like it's one city.
Oh yeah.
Like from a geographical perspective, from Macau.
It's like
to
the
Hong
Greater
Kong.
Toronto area.
Yeah.
Except like more intense.
Yeah.
Damn.
And so this belt here, this is where when you think of like how China is like manufacturing.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
That's what you're really thinking about. Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Foshan. Like
so it's this
area.
whole thing.
This whole thing.
It's this entire thing that is like this, and the way it's integrated and the way it all fits together that is really driving the output here.
Yeah, exactly. And like Shenzhen would be, if you think of it as kind of like the nerve center. I mean, these like massive overgeneralizations, but Shenzhen is like the nerve center of like massively specialized, advanced electronics.
Yeah.
But then it's really this whole area is where that manufacturing just giant is happening. And The
Can you zoom out so I can just see this area in context of like all of China? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Wow, that's nuts. So it's like a small part of China.
Yeah. It would be like if, again, I'm comparing it to Texas, but like if you took the triangle in Texas,
Can you
like
keep zooming
Houston,
back into that area again?
Houston, Dallas, Austin, and then you like built that into just one giant.
Yeah.
On
Holy
the
shit,
coast.
this is amazing. So it's very difficult to fully understand what's going on here because you would have to fully understand this kind of pocket and the way it all interrelates. Wow.
And then another thing that's, I think, valuable to think about with China is just like the US. You know how you have like different centers in the US? You have like the Northeast centered on New York. You have the West Coast centered on maybe LA and SF. You have Texas. And they have slightly different cultures. They have slightly different sources of economic value. They have slightly different, like, they have like distinctive personalities in many ways. China is very similar. And so if you zoom out to show the country, you have this kind of manufacturing heartland. Heartland's maybe not the right word, but like this manufacturing center around in Guangdong. And that's kind of one type, like part of the country. Then you have Beijing and that kind of area in Hebei, and that's another kind of center of power and economy, and that's where the government is.
I see.
And then you have Shanghai,
shit.
which is next to Jiangsu province. I'm not sure if I got the tones on that right, but Shanghai is like the financial center.
Oh yeah, holy fuck.
And that's like the financial center and where a lot of like foreign national companies put their headquarters. And then the other part of the country that's really hard to wrap your head around is there's this huge area which is just desert and mountains. And you've got like Tibet and Xinjiang and these kind of areas where very, very few people live comparatively.
Holy shit, man. This is nuts. This is like such a massive thing.
I think
this is like so much shit. Holy, like I know nothing about this really. Like, you know what I mean? It's a huge blind spot that I have in terms of understanding the world. I feel. I really, really want to go here. This seems like amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country. You know how there was this TV event? I'm now just spouting random facts that you might find interesting.
That's good,
There was this TV event in China. I can't remember the Chinese name, but the English translation for this TV show was called Taste of China.
Yeah.
And it was basically a documentary where people went around the country to different provinces, different cities, tried street food, tried...
Wow, that sounds good. This is a local kind of show.
Yeah.
Maybe
if you add like documentary or a bite of China might be it. It might be a bite of China. And when this show came out, in the 2010s, I think it was like the biggest thing that had ever existed on Chinese in 2010s, on like Chinese television, and people were like absolutely obsessed with it, and it was basically the equivalent of doing Chef's Table. Just in China, looking at like traditional foods, and it tells you a lot about how it's this kind of huge country with like very different cuisines throughout the whole place that has a sense of itself as both a single place with like a single cultural identity, but also this like intense variety within it.
I got some interesting info about what you were saying about the area. If you want to jump back to that, and then we'll go to food for a sec. If you go back to the map for a sec, but like, so I think this area that you're talking about is called the Greater Bay Area.
Yeah.
11 adjoining cities. 9 in the Guangdong province, plus Hong Kong and Macau.
Yeah.
2024 gross product is about 14.5 trillion yen, which is like $2 trillion US dollars, on only 1% of China's land and 6% of its people. Global innovation ranking, the Shenzhen Hong Kong Guangzhou Science Cluster is number 2 worldwide, behind only Tokyo and Yokohama. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right, but so I just wanted to understand like how this works together as like an integrated system. And so it says how the puzzle pieces lock together. Physical infrastructure. Hong Kong's, I might say these names wrong. Hong Kong So I Macau Bridge, a high-speed rail linking Guangzhou, Hong Kong in 48 minutes, and a 4-network master plan knitting national, intercity, and metro rail into one grid by 2025. It reduces a 2-hour truck haul, a 40-minute drive. It enables the same. So I guess you can dart around this area pretty quick.
Yeah. And not only, there's a crazy stat with this. So there's high-speed rail that takes you, because it's like hundreds of kilometers, so it'll take you from one city center to the next very fast. But if you zoom out, Hong Kong has a subway, Dongguan has a subway, Guangzhou has a subway, Foshan has a subway, Shenzhen has a subway. You can take the subway from Foshan to Hong Kong. And
holy fuck.
You have to like change subways, right? Like there's like many different lines, but it's an interconnected subway system to the point where you could literally take the subway from Foshan to Hong Kong. I don't know if Google will have it partly because they're building 5 lines a year, so like it's changing very fast. But this is
5 lines a year.
I mean that number, but like
they're building
Shanghai alone has added like 2 subway lines a year for the last 20 years.
Wow.
I don't know that specific data point, but it's basically that. If you look up, if you go to Baidu Maps, they'll definitely have it.
Some other thing here is that
BAIDU, I think.
I don't know if this is correct, but it says like an example. A camera module is conceived in Shenzhen, prototyped overnight in Guan, tooled in Foshan, exported via Nansha port, financed via Hong Kong. Interesting. Why the GBA, which is that area, is a lens on China's next decade. From made in to designed in. The region shows how China is upgrading its manufacturing base while climbing the value chain into EVs, robotics, and biotech. It's probably like that's already happened, right? Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest. There's this like massive misconception that people had in the early 2000s that like China can't innovate. But I don't know. I think it's already the case that it's questionable whether the most interesting innovation is happening in China or in the US. Yeah. Like, drones basically exist because of China. Like, DJI's advanced there. Basically anything physical. But then also like social media, like the biggest social media app of the last few years, TikTok, is a Chinese company. Yeah.
I did some quick search into the Shenzhen food scene. This is kind of interesting. If you can name the dish, there's almost certainly a place in town, often in a shiny plaza, serving it alongside hot pot, sushi, and bubble tea. Let's see. Hakka. So I asked it like if it had like shawarma. There's a venue called Shawarma House in Fushen plus SeaWorld. Halal wraps. Interesting. A snapshot of other foreign options you'll see a lot: Japanese and Korean, Southeast Asia, South Asia, like North Indian tandoori joints, Pakistani curry houses, Italian pizza, U.S. burger chains, plant-based and cafes. Shenzhen population exploded from less than 30,000 to 17 million in 40 years. Migrants brought their regional Chinese food and demanded variety. Every new property project bakes in restaurant floors to boost foot traffic and lease rates. Large expat pocket. Shikao shipping and tech zones created a ready market for Turkish grills, taco bars, and craft beer. Night owl work culture. Factories and startups run late, so 24-hour skewer stalls and noodle shops thrive. Quick tips for eating your way around. Go mall hopping. follow WeChat mini programs for live wait times and e-coupons. Almost every stall, including the street barbecue, takes Alipay or WeChat, carrying a card linked to wallet or a friend who can scan and pay. Shenzhen isn't just Cantonese dim sum territory anymore. It's plazas, stack, shawarma, sushi, hot pot, craft beer under one roof, so you can circle the food world in a single metro line. Oh shit. Interesting. I just looked into the subway line thing a little bit too. Let's see. I asked ChatGPT 03 how hard it is to add a new subway line and how fast is China at adding new subway lines. So it's saying that adding a new subway line is inherently hard. Civil works alone can run a US of 200, I don't know how accurate this is, but 200 to 400 million per kilometer. That seems fucking not right.
That's not right for China. That would be right.
This is like not China. Route and geology. Engineers must thread tunnel. This is talking about why creating a subway line is inherently hard first. Engineers must thread tunnels past foundations, utilities, and water tables. A bad stratum or a historic building can shift an alignment by blocks. Acres of surface land are still needed for shafts, stations, and depots. Acquiring it means environmental reviews, community hearings, and often lawsuits. Track, power, communication, and signaling must be installed, tested, and certified as a single safety critical system. Long before opening day, the agency has to budget drivers, control room staff, rolling stock, and maintenance barns for decades to come. In Western cities, the planning, design, and approval phase alone can exceed 5 to 8 years. Construction adds another 6 to 10 years because costs mount quickly. Few cities build more than one line at a time. How China manages to build them faster and cheaper. State ownership of urban land removes lengthy, eminent domain fights. Compensation is administrative, not litigated. Centralized, maybe you can riff on this after this. Centralized approvals. One feasibility study goes to the National Development and Reform Commission. Once approved, funding is guaranteed and environmental reviews are streamlined. Standardized station and tunnel designs regarding using blueprints and bulk ordering components cuts design times. Reusing blueprints and bulk ordering components cuts design times. This almost sounds like they're running like a company or something, but yeah. 24-hour shift construction. Labor laws allow around-the-clock excavation, shortening the civil works schedule. Local financing tools. Cities bundle rail and adjacent real estate projects, capturing land value uplift to repay debt. Because of these levers, many China lines go from groundbreaking to first passenger in 4 to 6 years. Shenzhen's 29-kilometer Line 10, 2015 to 2020 is how long it took, and 32-kilometer Line 14, 2018 to 2022 are recent examples. Average civil cost clusters around 600 to 900 million yen per kilometer, which is $18 to $125 million US, roughly 1/10 of New York's 2nd Avenue subway. Why this matters for understanding China. Urban rails lets Beijing pump infrastructure spending into local economies without adding more expressways. Every kilometer supports thousands of jobs in steel, signaling, and rolling stock factories. Metro stations anchor new high-density districts, steering migration away from overcrowded cores. Driverless trains, platform screen doors, and QR code ticketing debut here first, reinforcing China's image as an infrastructure innovator. The ability to announce and deliver a 40-kilometer subway in half a decade is used domestically and abroad as proof of China's modernization works. Chinese firms now export the same fast-build metro model, complete with turnkey financing, to Jakarta, Sao Paulo, and Lagos. Holy shit. There's a lot. There's a lot of... there's a lot there. It's like they're operating on like a fundamentally different paradigm or something, like with a different chip. Since
It's really hard to, you know. Yes, I think they are. It does feel like they're operating on a completely different paradigm. One of the big questions I have, and this is a very fuzzy, high-level question, is how much of the different paradigm that China is operating on is they're operating on the paradigm that, let's say, you know, Canada and the US were operating on in the 1950s, 60s.
Right.
And they're just operating on it today, and we're no longer operating on it, versus they're operating in a very different fashion. And I think there's bits that are true in both cases. But like a lot of what you're describing actually sounds a lot more like the way things used to be done in the US.
Yeah.
Or in, not all of it, but some of it.
I think one of the things about that is just like, yeah, maybe it's a timing thing, and maybe it's like an operational structure thing. Maybe in some situations it's like when you structure things a certain way, it's easier to get things done than if you structure them in other ways. If you have to ask 100 people for approval before you can do something, versus if you only need to ask one person, obviously it's going to be faster to ask the one person than not to ask the 100 people. But so let's just say, like, it's a good point. Let's just say, like, it's like you've worked out the structure where like they can get more work done because of a specific improved structure for getting work done, an improved system or workflow for getting work done. It's a timing thing too, because if you get that system for getting more work done, or making decisions faster, or moving and innovating faster, well then you have that system relative to modern technology. Totally. Right. Yeah. So like that matters, because and the modern technology has like a lot of implications on like how we live, like what is possible. So it's not just that they are operating maybe in the way that another country was in the past when they were like high output, but it's also like they're operating at a time that has like a specific kind of technology, which has a specific kind of like implications, right?
Totally.
You know, that's like a huge element, and that fundamentally changes like what's possible, right? So high output with robotics and with AI, with all this stuff, is like a different kind of output than without that.
100%.
There's actually so the technology, as far as it relates to like game dynamics, I think is like really interesting. So I might butcher this, and you know more about this, but like I think the core idea is, or you can like tell me whatever I'm wrong. This is like my basic thing, but like I think there was like Troy, right? At one point, like Troy was like a really powerful city, right? And place. This is like really, I'm just fucking, it's like, this is like my shitty thing, right? And so like one of the reasons why they were like so powerful is that I think it had to do with their like geographical location. And I think they were on like some hills or something, and like they had like these huge walls. And what they would do is when they were like attacked and stuff like that, I think they had like a geographical vantage point that allowed them to see potential opponents like way in advance. And what they would do is, I think they would operate both inside and outside of the walls of the city. Like try to find like Troy walls or something. Like I think the design of the city was like really important. Maybe there's like a visualization or something. I don't know, man. But they designed it in a way, I think, that was like very defensive. Yeah. A vision of Troy according to ancient sources. Yeah, maybe that's a good one. That one you were just on. And like if you zoom in, do they have like these big walls? Yeah. So see these like walls that are like all around it, right? And so they had this like specific geographical vantage point that allowed them to see opponents coming in, right? And what they would do is they would when they saw like an army or whatever coming in, they would take everything on the outside and they would all just move inside. And when the army would come in, they would come on foot. So they have like a set number of supplies, a set number of weapons, and all this shit. And so they come in, and they want to attack, but the Troy is now in this defensive position, and they just wait for the army to just run out of supplies, run out of food, get sick, get hungry, and shit like that. And then they would just go from the inside of the city, they would go outside and just fucking kill everybody.
Yeah.
Right? So what's interesting is this was a powerful place. And like what's interesting is what ended up changing these dynamics was technology. And so what happened was there were people that were making, I don't know which country it would be exactly, but they were making essentially boats, like huge vessels. And I think the way that this worked, this is my like Buckminster Fuller fucking, like who knows how accurate all this is, right? But it's like they were looking at the rib cage of a whale, and they were like, oh, like what if you could like use that as like an inspiration for like a massive ship? And they started to work. Like it started to work where they would make these vessels that could go travel across long distances. But the key thing that had an effect on Troy was that they could fill these boats with supplies. And so if you go back to that image of like Troy, so what they would do is they would come in from the water, right? And then they would drop off people with supplies, and they would go back and get more supplies. And then that changed now the game dynamic, because their whole like place was built on like you have a finite number of supplies. And now it's like we're just going to keep coming. Right? And I think that like and even like I think like ships in general, I think it was like the British like Navy, right? It's like that the idea of like ship travel and trade and stuff like that, it influenced like the power dynamics of the whole world, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's like another interesting thing. It's not just the organizational like processes of like which increases the speed of output, but I think when people unlock and have a system for a new kind of way of living, a new ability, unlocking a new ability of what humans can do, it has like a huge global impact, you know, on like the way the whole world works.
They were talking about this in this podcast I was listening to about how China and Apple have this like symbiotic relationship, that the iPhone exists because of the specific technological and demographic settings that the world had between kind of 2000 and 2020. And it was specifically one, China joined the World Trade Organization, and you started to have these huge shipping lines that would allow you to like trade with China, and there was kind of this geopolitical change to allow for this trade with China. And then the second one was that China had this very large migrant population of people who were willing to do this like very hard work in factories that would with like assembly and things like that for very cheap by global standards. And not just that they were like cheap, but they were also like organized in the right kind of way where you could, you know, mass manufacture something like the iPhone. And this meant that there was this symbiotic thing that allowed you to create something like the iPhone at a price that would work for the average consumer at this unique moment in history. Like it wouldn't have been possible to do this in the US. Like there wasn't the labor force, there wasn't the right kind of conditions to actually create. And so there's this strange thing where the kind of like rise of China economically, as well as the creation of these like these devices, are kind of tightly interlinked because of the particular technology, the particular geopolitics and demographics of the time.
Was the first iPhone made in China? Was it always?
So no. So I just heard this, so I'm going to try and get it right. I think
I looked it up as well.
So I think it was, and I think that they switched over during the manufacturing of the iPod, that they were manufacturing in all different parts of the world, and their biggest manufacturing was in Taiwan, and then the iPod took off, and because they needed to start manufacturing way more iPods very fast, they started to scale up in China. And I think by the time the iPhone, if I remember the story that he just told correctly, by the time the iPhone comes along, it's all China. for everything.
Why did you say the World Trade Organization is like an important step? I didn't understand that one. Like, why was joining that important?
Long story very short, and this is, again, I'm just repeating what was from this podcast.
Oh, good.
So, basically, if you're not in the World Trade Organization, it's very hard to trade with the Western Bloc. Like if you think about these institutions like the United Nations, World Trade Organization, these kinds of things, they're really institutions to like knit together the allies post Second World War.
Yeah.
They're like the US-led order is the World Trade Organization kind of thing. And so, for instance, like the Soviet Union was never allowed to join the World Trade Organization, which made it very hard to trade between the Soviet Union and any other country.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2001, China was joined the World Trade Organization, and suddenly like the Western Bloc, so US, Canada, Europe, thought of China as a place you can just trade with, like any other country in some sense. And so that was essential to this idea that China could become the manufacturing center for the world, was the idea that you could just trade freely with them. And you had this certain set of rules and this certain institutional structure that allowed for that.
I looked up the iPhone's history with China. So 2006 to early 2007, Apple holds a last minute bid. When did the iPhone come out?
2008, I think. Nope, I was wrong.
What was it? Oh, 2007. Okay, so let's see. 2006, early 2007, Apple holds a last-minute bid to find a contractor that can switch the original plastic screen to a glass and still ship in June. Foxconn wins and dedicates part of its Longhua Shenzhen campus. Can you look up the campus? To a brand new product codenamed M68. Longhua, so Longhua, Shenzhen campus. Images. Yeah, try to find like a wide shot. June 29th, 2007, the first generation iPhone goes on sale. Every unit is assembled in Longhua. Foxconn has about 15,000 people on the line working 12-hour shifts. So this was from the get-go, like totally what you said. It's like part of the innovation of the iPhone was China, basically. Yeah. Like this, the way they, it was like a manufacturing breakthrough.
Yeah, and this guy was arguing that this is, if you want to think about like the three Apple found, like the three people that are kind of the mythology of Apple, that you've got like Ive on design, Jobs as this orchestrator and kind of like vision holder, and then Cook as the operations. This is really, this person would argue, Cook's genius. Like Tim Cook's genius was the operations of figuring out you could get 15,000 people at a labor cost that worked in a certain way, structuring the supply line in a certain way.
Yes.
That meant you could create this exceptionally high quality product at a very, very low price.
Yeah. I have a tweet that I think you're really going to like, but I'll save it for a sec. So 2008 to 2000, I'll send it to you in a sec. 2008 to 2009. So this is after now they're working 12-hour shifts. Mm-hmm. Totally what you said. So 2008 to 2009. Also, just what's interesting as well is like when I look at this kind of stuff, the timeline of this stuff, the timeline of these kinds of projects always makes me think I'm not doing enough. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like, this is like nuts, because it's like what 1 year to the next, and this has like huge impact. But it's just really impressive that this is even possible. So 2008 to 2009, volumes jump with iPhone 3G and 3GS. Apple doubles down on Shenzhen and adds dozens of local parts suppliers for casings, batteries, and connectors. 2010, after a spate of worker suicides in Shenzhen and soaring coastal wages, I remember this. Foxconn. So here, I guess at this point, they maybe they don't fully know what this is. They're pushing the limits of their manufacturing process, which is obviously, as you mentioned, like very human based, and they're just pushing the limits here. You could see where it kind of like breaks, right?
Well, there's this amazing point that I'd never heard articulated in quite this way before, from this interview. By the way, I feel like we're talking a lot about this interview. This interview is just great. It's Barry Weiss talking to this guy. I think it's Patrick Yi. But the point
It's all good, man.
The point he made is that China has this huge migrant population, and I can't remember the term for this, but in China you get like an identity card that says, are you rural or are you urban, and it ties you to a particular place in the country. And there's this population of people who like are rural people who go to the cities to do work, and they're called like migrant workers.
Yeah.
And the important thing about the migrant workers is that there's hundreds of millions of them. So it's like there's a population the size of the US of these migrant workers, and the migrant workers are they almost are like temporary labor. They don't kind of go have a job for multiple years. They go often for like 3 months at a time, make money, send it home, and then kind of move around like this. And so a lot of these manufacturing processes that rely on these migrant workers, they are too tough for someone to have this as a job. Like you can't have this as a multi-year job. It's something where you're going to burn out very fast. Okay. And they have this turnover of like 1 to 2 months often for these workers. But because there's this giant population of migrant workers, it means that they can just burn through them.
Oh my God.
And so it's 15,000.
That's fucking crazy.
So it's not actually that there's 15,000 people working there. It's that over the course of a year, there's 50,000 people working there.
Yeah. Yo, imagine a job so hard that the fucking burn rate, or the churn rates is like 1 month. Like, how hard is this fucking job, man?
Man, I mean, there are jobs in Canada that are like that. A lot of service jobs like that, you know?
Yeah. Damn. Damn. Okay, so 2010. After a spate of worker suicides in Shenzhen and soaring coastal wages, Foxconn and the Hen and provincial government build iPhone City in Sengzhou, a 5 square kilometer plant and dormitory complex that will soon ship half the world's iPhones. iPhone City, man. Imagine having a product so successful that there's like cities built.
And there used to be that there were lots of cities like this in North America, you know, company towns.
Right. Detroit.
Well, Detroit, but also like they were like custom built, like this is the only one that's coming to mind, so it's not a perfect example. But in Canada, there's a place called Uranium City.
Really?
Which is it was one of the original like massive uranium mines.
Does it still exist?
It does still exist.
It's a really nice image.
One of my
it still exists?
Uranium City? I think so. I don't know if it might have been discontinued. Discontinued is the wrong word. One of my abide to that image that we were just looking at.
Go back to the second link. Yeah, this.
Yeah. So one of my
it's a really nice. He's like eating noodles in the truck.
Yeah. One of my like abiding impressions in China is that when I lived there, I would like drive with friends and things to different places, and you'd be on these massive highways, like 5-lane highways and things, and I have this abiding image of like late at night like this of these trucks of all different kinds of trucks, like from the last 30 years of like varying qualities and everything. And an image like this is very resonant with a certain kind of quality that exists in China. There's a quality of really fighting for a better way of life, right? Like there's you're like really fighting at the edges. So there's something there. There's also something about
like, what do you mean?
I got this when I went to Vietnam as well, that there's a sense that, and actually you see it in Singapore, which is weird because it's like a rich country. But there's a sense that people are, they are kind of like in fight mode in order to make their lives and the lives of the people around them better.
Oh, I see.
And part of it's because they feel they don't have a good quality of life currently, but you see it more in Singapore. You see, because they have a sense that like life will get better if they fight really hard for it.
Yeah. There's like hope.
or the other way that they're like, there's an anxiety that if you don't fight really hard for it, it could go
Life will
really
go-
bad really
yeah.
fast. It's like, you know.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I'm just guessing. I think you better to talk to somebody who actually experienced it. But I think that in China, it's got something to do with there's a cultural memory of the Cultural Revolution and of the Great Leap Forward. And so there's this, for anyone who's over the age of 40, you know, they've seen things when they get really bad, and they've also seen themselves go from
over there.
that,
You mean?
over there, yeah. Like they've seen themselves go from serious poverty to real wealth, and
very quickly.
And so they have a sense that like it's possible, and they know what they're running from. You know, they know,
sure.
and
they know they remember when times were tough.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a really interesting dynamic, because like when you growing up here, it's like, you know, looking around, the environment has kind of stayed similar, but over there, I mean, the rate of change is so rapid. What was the catalyst? How did they go? Oh, I guess it was this shift in manufacturing.
Actually, it was before the manufacturing. The key catalyst was actually land reform. And this has been a common pattern in lots of countries that have become rich, but from being poor. And this was started under Deng Xiaoping. And I think that, I can't remember the exact nature of the land reform, but it was basically all land was collectivized. So all farming was essentially state run, and they had the idea of the Iron Bowl, where like all the farmers would get together and they would feed out of this one giant pot that was like managed by the state. And they basically allowed people to own land again.
Yeah.
And they allowed like individual farmers to actually own a particular plot of land and keep the profits when they like, you know, did something with that piece of land.
Yeah.
And so suddenly you have, you know, a market, and there's like an aggressive push to become more productive. Amount of like farm output goes up very rapidly. And so that, I think, was the like first major change.
Yeah.
After that, there were a bunch of reforms that led to this. You know, there was figuring out how to join the World Trade Organization, setting up special economic zones where you could have these foreign companies come in, give you know-how, invest to build manufacturing, and then you shipped the products outside, build up your own kind of skilled labor force. Generally allowing for you know, entrepreneurship and competition that meant that people could start these businesses. Yeah.
Super interesting. I'm trying to see if I can get a timeline as well, like a deep analysis of like how and why this happened. It's really interesting. I also wonder if there's like any other like thing that's like progressed this quickly before in this way. I just kind of like process that as like I think it's like, it's one thing to look at it as an outsider, but it's like another thing, because this progression exists on the timeline of like a single human life, right? And so it's just like really interesting to think how it would have affected the psyche of the individuals there. Here's some stuff. Maybe this is related to what you're saying. The single lightning rod moment was the third plenum of the 11th Communist Party Central Committee, 18 to 22 December 1978. At that closed-door meeting, Deng Xiaoping and Reform allies won approval for reform and opening up, pivoting the country away from Mao-era collectivism toward a pragmatic, market-leading development strategy. Everything that powered China's later... So this guy must be considered like a legend, right?
100%, yeah.
Over there. So everything that powered China's later boom, household farming, special economic zones, foreign investment, and export manufacturing, and eventually WTO entry, flows out of the political green light given in those 5 days. Wow. Why did the plenum happen, and when it happened when it did? Wow, this is fucking crazy. Economic near collapse after Cultural Revolution, grain shortages, obsolete factories, near zero foreign reserves. Leaders accepted that pure central planning had hit a dead end. Wow. Holy fuck. That's insane. So this is like people that have seen their country basically fucked.
The important thing I think as well about Deng and the rest of the plenum is that what's really interesting about this that goes counter to a lot of like simplistic narratives of like communism and the party is that they were all there in the original revolution. Like, you know, these are like true believers. They are close, you know, these were like close to Mao. That they're not like some new revolutionaries who have come up from a different place and are fighting back against this. They've like seen what has happened and like changed their minds. Essentially, they've decided, oh no, this is a different way forward for us.
Man, this is really nuts because this is like a coming of age story. Like if I was part of this, I would be like very proud that like this is like a huge comeback story. Like this is like a fucking movie, man.
One that the other thing that's really important for the psyche for I think for a lot of people in China, especially for a lot of the leadership, is that there's this idea of the century of humiliation.
Yeah.
That China is, you know, and if you look at like old economic charts, depending on exactly how you like measure this and stuff, for the vast amount of human history, China has been the richest, most powerful state in the world.
Yeah.
Right. Like up until kind of the 1600s, like it was just undoubtedly the most powerful centralized economic structure. And then there was this what's called I think it's the century of humiliation following the Opium Wars, where China becomes very poor in a variety of different ways. And then following an idea now is that what's happening now is that China is finally like reclaiming its rightful place in the global economic order.
Yeah.
And
which is crazy, yeah.
And so like we because we grew up in a certain structure for the world,
we have a limited view of China.
We have a very and if you're in China and you have this knowledge of this 5,000 years of history, you're like, well, this is what's going to happen. Like
this is how it's supposed to be.
This is how it's supposed to be.
We've always been this way.
Yeah.
Wow. Grassroots experiment. This is it's just really interesting because it's like fucking hard to do, to just go from a state of like you're dying to not dying. And it's like one of the like as far like it's like humans, like people like love these stories.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, being knocked down, counted out, almost close to death, and then saying no. You know? Like this is not who we are. And then actually doing it. This is like the every fucking good story. But so it says grassroots experimentation, most famously the secret Zhaogang village household responsibility pact signed weeks earlier in rural Anhui. The plenum retro-legalized such experiments instead of punishing them. So I guess they moved towards more of an experimental environment. Power shift after Mao's death in 1976. Deng rebuilt influence, framing growth as a new test of socialist success. His slogan, "Seek truth from facts," undercut ideological resistance. Wow, that's a fucking big change. Sounds like they had to change their culture too.
Yeah, my favorite.
In some way,
they had to change the culture of the Communist Party, I think. But there's a deep kind of Chinese civilizational understanding of pragmatism.
Right.
And so in many ways, I think that the kind of like hyper pragmatic approach that Deng took is actually, you can see kind of echoes of that throughout Chinese history.
Yeah.
My favorite Deng quote is, "It doesn't matter if a cat is black or white. If it catches mice, it's a good cat."
Interesting. Is there any good books to read about this?
So I haven't read it, but the classic book on Deng Xiaoping is, I think it's by Eric Vogel.
Yeah.
And it's called Deng.
It's just his first name?
Yeah, it's just called Deng.
Deng.
And then I think that'll autocorrect to the right answer. No,
you gotta go wherever you just were.
I think the Harvard University Press one, the third link, that's the cover. That's the cover, yeah. Ezra. So that I think is considered like the classic book on this. I haven't read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how this decision unleashed the growth machine. So rural reform first, 1979 to 1984. Collective fields, kind of what you were saying earlier, I think. Collective fields were leased to individual families. Food output jumped 50% in a decade. Holy fuck. Special economic zones, 1980 onward. Shenzhen, Zhuhai, Shantou, and Xiamen offered duty-free imports, profit retention, and foreign joint ventures. By the mid-1990s, Shenzhen GDP was growing 5 to 6 times the national rate. Holy fuck. Price and state, like some of this has to be like cultural or something, because this is this shift. This is like so fast. It's like so much output.
So if you were to tell a cultural story, I think there's a good cultural story to tell.
Yeah.
Of China has historically, for many parts of the last couple thousand years at least, had a culture that's very mercantile.
Yeah.
Like lots of merchants, lots of trading, lots of kind of business. You know, they had some of the very first examples of money, contracts, etc. And a culture that emphasizes education and discipline and self-development and this kind of like creation of like a better way of life for your family.
Yeah.
And that in many, and specifically your family, like you and your family, which is what goes really well in capitalism, right? If you're like looking out for like you and your family and trying to build up, goes really well in capitalism. And you basically have post-Mao, you have, what is it, like almost 40 years, no, well, 30 years, almost 30 years, where you have a system that says, we're going to have the exact opposite of that. We're going to have this like intense inability for you to trade, intense inability for you to like, better your own life.
Why did they do that?
That is a big question.
That
is a big question, man.
Well, let's see this. So price and state enterprise reforms mid-1980s. Geo-track pricing lets firms sell above quota output on open markets. Incentives, not quotas, began to drive productions. 1992, Southern Tour reset. After the 1989 Tiananmen shock, Deng's tour of Shenzhen and Shanghai told cadres development is the hard truth. Revive stalled liberalization and opening China's first stock exchanges. Holy shit. WTO ascension, 2001, locked in tariff cuts and rule-based trade. Exports soared from 23% to 36% of GDP in a decade, and China became the world's factory. Holy fuck. So they weren't doing. Were they in any way a manufacturing center before this? Holy shit.
There was some during Mao. There was some like manufacturing centers that have been created, but not in a meaningful way like this. I mean, to be clear, in a long arc of Chinese history, there have been periods where China has been a manufacturing center and exported a ton globally, but not in like post-industrial revolution.
Wow. Okay, now I'll show you this tweet because it's relevant. I'll send you this, Tommy. It's really interesting. That this has even happened. It's probably like his top tweet or something. Man, you don't have just like the copy paste enabled? The shared clipboard between your iPhone and... Okay, so the more I learn about semiconductor supply chain, the more implausible it all seems. There's a small island vulnerable to evasion where all the chips are made, and the machines to make them all come from one firm in the Netherlands using lenses made by one firm in Germany. Oh, and the quartz to make the crucibles for making the required silicon wafers all comes from one cave system in North Carolina. Dude, this is just lazy world building. The market would never sustain monopolies like this. And then if you keep scrolling, this guy's like, wait till you hear about the atomic saw maker. Wait, go back. Wait till you hear about the atomic saw maker that has 75% of the market. Keep going. Keep scrolling. It really is astonishing. The entire digital world hinges on a single semiconductor hub the size of a small state sitting smack in a geopolitically tense region. If Taiwan ever went offline, production would grind to a halt because you can't run those fabs without ASML's one-of-a-kind EUV machines or the ultra-precise lenses from Germany. Every single step, Japanese chemicals, American silicon, photomask from Arizona, rely on niche specialists with no redundancies. As Peter Zahin points out, that level of concentration isn't just fragile, it's a strategic gamble on the razor's edge. The more you learn about manufacturing supply chains, the more you find things like this. There are life-saving medications that are only made in one factory. There are all kinds of situations where maybe a dozen people fully understand the process needed to make some critical part. What the fuck?
For me, that last line, there are only
the critical part.
There are maybe a dozen people who fully understand the process. I think that there's so much of our world which they couldn't even write it down. These dozen people wouldn't even know how to write down the stuff that they know that lets them do what they do. Yeah. And when you hear that joke about like somebody sees some kind of like building and somebody else is like, oh, Daddy, like, how did you like, how did they make that? Why don't we have more of these today? And he's like, oh, we can't make them anymore. We don't know how. And I think that I actually think there's like so much of our world that is like on the edge of being like that. Yeah. And the chip fabs are definitely a huge part of this. That like when the US goes to TSMC and says you have to build a fab in the US because we hate this geopolitical situation and we don't trust it. What they're really asking them to do is import a bunch of Taiwanese people. Like they're not saying give us the docs, give us money, or like give us like the IP.
Figure
that
out
you
how
have.
to get them here.
It's like,
but that's not good, right? Yeah. Damn.
Well, it's not good, but I also think that it's impossible to avoid it. That the kind of like the most sophisticated edge of knowledge in any domain requires this kind of a full life to fully embody and understand it in some sense. And so you can only ever pass it to a few people because you can't like write it all down and then have somebody read all of it and understand. You can to some degree with a lot of stuff, but there's a way in which it requires somebody to like give their life to this thing and to really adopt the ways, manners, and understanding of the person who's like driving that particular scientific edge. And so you're only ever going to be able to transfer it to like a few people at a time. It's not something where you could like broadcast it on YouTube and suddenly like everybody knows how this stuff gets done. Yeah.
There's this kind of like naive thing that like kind of like that I subscribe to, but like I kind of like was first I always thought this, but like after I read like Buckminster Fuller more, I started to like have like more conviction behind it. But I don't know like how useful it is in the modern world. But it's just basically like he would talk about how his whole thing was that everything he would design would be like, he called it comprehensive anticipatory design science. Basically this idea that everything he would design would be like consider all factors and not pretend like things were like isolated when they weren't. And anticipatory meaning like he would not only factor in like the current realities, but try and look at how things are moving. And even if there's a problem that he sees that is not a problem now but could be a problem in 100 years, why not start like working on a solution for it, right? And like one of the things he would just say is like how it's cool because he took a lot of like ideas about like how the world works and like how we're thought about how it works, and he would like try to like retrain himself and kind of thinking about how it actually works. And he would very often talk about like his frustrations with it. Like, so an example would be, let's say two quick examples are like, one is that he would call Earth like a space. He would call it Spaceship Earth. And it was this idea that like he's like, we're literally on this fucking floating thing that's like barreling through space, like rotating around the sun. We are on like a moving object, right? This is not a fixed object. We are on like a spaceship. And so he would call it like Spaceship Earth. I thought it was really innovative to like look at these things and like try and like package them under like new ideas, so that we could like so that you could like imagine different kinds of solutions, and you could like frame problems differently. Another example would be, he didn't like the term like the sun is like rising. He's like, it doesn't fucking rise, right? Like it doesn't even rise, right? It's like the planet is like rotating, and he thought it was like really dumb to continue to like popularize these terms, because it gives us a false understanding of like the nuanced reality of the way that like the situation that we're in. And he thought that it was like really important to have like an understanding of this like nuanced reality and to frame it correctly, because it really influenced the kinds of ideas and solutions you could come up with, right? And one of the things that he would say is that as a planet, like he's like, yeah, we have separated them into like countries, but the reality is, if you just step back and just think about it from a design perspective, it's one integrated system, right?
Yeah.
And if you just work on it as like a singular integrated system, and you accept that as like a reality, you can design in a much better way. So it's interesting reading that tweet where it's like, we have this, and it's like a high tension area, and it's this. If you just like strip away the names and labels of these like countries for a second, the problem is way less. I feel like the problem is way less intense. Right? Because it's like, hey, we have this thing, this like chip, and it's like concentrated in this high tension area. And it's like, okay, cool. So can we just like, make this more robust? Can we just make it so other people understand this thing? Because if it's all here, we're all fucked. And I think he had this line, I think it was him, where he said, if you bomb, like if China bombs someone else, or if you bomb China, it's like kind of dumb because you're bombing the hull of your own ship.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any fucking sense, right? It's like, oh, this is this country and this, but it's like, again, if you step back and think of it as like a singular spaceship, you're literally fucking attacking the vessel that we're all on.
Yeah.
Right?
Two things I want to say. One, I think you're like a master of this taking the way that it's like people look at a particular system and say, this is just how we talk about this system, and then like reevaluating it from first principles. And so,
thanks.
Just want to say, man, that's like, I've seen you do that a bunch. And then the second thing is, I picked up A Critical Path after you recommended it, and like he talked absolutely about that. And I think it's 100% true in the sense that we are all brothers and sisters as part of a single family with a single destiny due to our spaceship Earth, right? Due to our structure in the world. I think that the difficult thing from a design perspective is all of these human motivations that end up competing.
Yeah.
You know, like the difficult thing from a design perspective is that we don't have a way to go to our family and say to the family, you know, this is the right answer, let's follow this answer, because the family has all of these often in serious conflict motivations and desires wrapped up in particular identities, particular ways of like viewing themselves in the world, and ways of interacting with each other.
Yeah.
And so my sense is that often a lot of the most important design decisions are how to let people play out all of their often in conflict desires and motivations in a way to come to solutions that work without violence, without leading to these things, rather than like saying this is the design that we need.
Yeah, that's interesting. But then, so that's valid. But then there's like these situations, right, where you look at where like everyone just gets aligned.
Yeah.
And the example is like what we're saying with China.
Totally.
Right? It's like everything, boom, it just clicks. And I think there's like, what I thought, I think that's a very valid point, but I think that's like a luxury of people that are not in a situation where things are fucked. And I think that's like what's interesting about what he would say with like the spaceship. It's like, he would say like, or I think that's what's interesting about the idea of thinking of it as like a spaceship. Now, you could bring that conversation up and that idea up at different times, right? And depending on how people are feeling, determines how valid of or important of an idea that is. But what I thought that was interesting about it was that it is the truth of this. You know what I mean? Like, we are all on one integrated thing, and the way we've separated these countries is artificial relative to the reality of the planet itself. Like the way a planet's resources and the way that it functions as a system does not consider the lines that we've drawn, like as a natural system, right?
Totally.
And so I think what I thought was interesting was when a situation happens where there is like a collective concern, a collective issue where we have to we have to adapt, then what seems to happen is that we just go downstream towards whatever works, right? And I think that was what was interesting to me about the comprehensive Buckminster Fuller's a comprehensive anticipatory design science was he had this other thing where he would say that I'm like butchering this, but he would say there would be like people that would like as an example, I think he said something like this, where there would be people, let's say like crossing a river, trying to swim across this river, and they would be like dying and stuff. And as soon as you built like a bridge that made it so you could instantly like cross the river, if they wanted to, they would just start using it. You don't have to like convince them of something, but if like you mentioned, like if to survive, they just needed to cross the river once someone makes the bridge, they'll just fucking use it. You could have arguments before that bridge is made when they don't need to survive, right? About like, should the bridge be made? Should it not be made? Whatever, right? But if it's possible for you to just like make that thing outside of let's say if you think, hey, in 100 years this bridge is gonna matter, and never, people are like, who cares? This is stupid. Let's focus on other things. If you have the capacity to then make that bridge yourself, because maybe no one else cares about it. Maybe the cost of it is a certain thing where you can just do it yourself. And people, maybe at that time, people are like, who gives a fuck? This is like a project. I don't even care. What is this guy working on? It doesn't matter. When that issue comes up, 100 years down the line or 200 years down the line or whatever, people will just use that bridge. Like they'll just automatically adopt these things. And so that's what I found interesting from like a design perspective. It's like, yeah, at any given time we could, the family values or the different things, but the reality of the situation is that we're on this planet. Things seem to be going in some particular direction. You know what I mean? And when you look at this tweet, it's safe to say that it's like what you mentioned, that there's only a couple of people that know these things. It's safe to say that there are issues in like there are like failure points, right? And if you can do anything that addresses those failure points in any way that you can, at some point people will use them, I think. Right? If these people can document the way they do things in specific ways, at some point someone will use that information. It's just interesting. I like that because I think it's I think it's very useful in coming up with ideas of what to work on. Where you can look at this and like I look at this tweet and I think like, man, I find it very interesting. I think it would like I think like something like this would make for like a great documentary, and I also think it's interesting because I always see stuff like this and I always think that making an impact on an area like this is like a lot easier than most people think it is. Like some kind of impact, you know what I mean? Even if it's a simple, like I think that last line, wherever that line was, where he's like, it comes down to like a dozen people who have that information or whatever. I think even something as simple as like finding them, talking to them, documenting their process, understanding how it works, is like not that difficult to do, and like at one point in time in the future it could be like potentially like very high impact, you know.
100%.
Even just something like going to let's see, what does it say here? There's a small island vulnerable to invasion where all like the chips are made. Even somebody like going there, documenting how that works, what is it like there, putting it in a format that's like easy to understand, taking photos, you know, like seeing what the factories are like, what kind of chips are created, adding nuance to this. What kind of chips do they make? What kind of chips do they not make? Yeah, these are projects that are, I feel like, are like really high impact. Could be like potentially like really high impact. It's cool. And even just even another project could be like, okay, cool. Well, let's say you go to they're mentioning, I guess, Taiwan here, right? Yeah. So let's say you go there. Let's say you look at one of the factories and you kind of break it down. How does it work? What kind of chips do they make? How did it start? How how many people work there right now? How many chips do they make per day? How many chips do they make per week, per month? What is the historical progress of that? How do you, let's say they make 1,000 chips a day or something. How do they go from making one chip to 1,000 chips a day? What is that progression? And then it's like, okay, cool. If you break that down, can you distill it into a prototype version? And then can you do even a shittier version of it in Mississauga? Right? And that's it, like even just doing that and saying like, hey, this is, so now we tried to do this here. Here's the gaps. Here's what's hard about it. Here's what's like not hard about it. It's just, that's what I mean where I'm saying like this, that's why I like looking at this, because I think when you look at it from the angle of like the problem set and not like, you know what I mean? And it's not even, it's like that kind of project to do it, like to distill it down and to do that. It's not even about creating a competitive chip factory. You know what I mean? It's just like generally good.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, if we ever need to add redundancy to this situation, it's like, here we tried, and here's like what we learned, and here's what might be hard, and here's what, it's just, that's what I like about this stuff.
I completely agree. I know exactly what you mean with these kind of projects. And to your point about like changing this stuff being easy, I think part of the thing where you can have like a serious impact on these kinds of systems, you can have these crazy impacts with the right kind of analysis, the right kind of documenting of them. I have this belief that if you use your life to do something, it's actually pretty easy. Like if you were to see this and you say, well, I really want to create a state-of-the-art chip manufacturer in Mississauga.
Yeah.
And you made that a 40-year project.
Yeah.
You would do it. There's like most people that are that motivated by that make that their goal and actually commit I think you'll do it, and you won't do the thing you originally set out to do precisely, right? Because you'll learn why it was all a mistake, etc. But you'll do some project that will significantly transform our system and the design of this system. And so I agree. I think that projects like that are incredibly exciting. It's just about you have to, for me at least, I felt like you have to start to see the world in a certain way before you can commit yourself to a project. Like what do you mean? Like, and I think it's different for every person, but I think there's a way that like you have to, this is super woo and kind of like fuzzy, but like there's a way in which once you start to see your project as part of an integrated system, whatever that means for you, and you see it as having these kind of long-term impacts that you are interested in and genuinely want to understand at that system level, that's when you can find projects like this and commit yourself to them and do it effectively over time. Because if you do it in a somewhat naive way, if you do it in this way where you're not thinking about that long-term multi-stage systems impact, you'll just end up doing something that's an uninteresting question. You know, you'll work on something that like was handed down to you by your society.
So like, what's an example? Like if you can think of
an uninteresting question you'd end up with?
Yeah, no, I mean, like it seems like you're saying if you work on a project with some broader consideration of how it fits into a system, then something about the project improves or something.
Yeah. So an example of this is Sony. When Sony started, the way that I understand it started is you had these
Again,
like
in a difficult time in Japan.
very difficult time in Japan, and you had these 10 like young guys who got together in a room, and they didn't even know what they were going to build yet.
No.
And they wrote this like manifesto, which you can still you can still get it on like Sony's website, where they were like, what are we going to do? And they said, we're going to create this amazing manufacturing state-of-the-art company to both explore the edges of what you can do with kind of I guess something like creative and technology. I can't remember the exact manifesto, as well as for the glory, they wouldn't have used these precise words, but like for the glory of Japan. And so it was part of, they had this like integrated vision of where they were going. And I think that you need some kind of grounding, some kind of systems level grounding. And you might even not think of it as like a system, but like some kind of systems level grounding in where you're going to be able to effectively pursue these really transformative projects over 30, 40 years. And I think the reason that you need to has something to do with it's so complex. The system is so complex. You're going to need to make so many decisions that it's impossible to foresee ahead of time. You need your grounding to be at like a large enough scale in some sense to be able to fit all of those decisions together as part of your original motivations that set you off down that path.
Yeah. I think I found it, or I found something. Sony's founding prospectus, May 7th, 1946. There's a good podcast about this too. There's a good book about this.
I read it in...
what's it called again?
It's the same guy who wrote From Good to Great, but it's not in Good to Great. It's in his other book.
Jim Collins?
Yeah.
He wrote that Sony book?
No. He didn't write... I read about...
No, but there's a book about Sony that's like really good.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. That's where I heard about it, though, is I think Collins.
Okay, so Masaru Ibuka, sorry, drafted this 9-page manifesto when he and Akio Morita turned a 20-person wartime lab into Tokyo Telecommunications Engineering Corp, Totsuko, the company that would be renamed Sony a decade later. It spells out. So this is like post-World War II, I guess. Core purpose, 8-point purpose of incorporation. Create an ideal factory that stresses a spirit of freedom and open-mindedness, and where engineers with sincere motivation can exercise their technological skills to the highest level. Rebuild, number 2. This is fucking crazy. Number 2, rebuild Japan and elevate its culture through dynamic technology and manufacturing. Number 3, turn wartime R&D into household products as quickly as possible. Well, I guess I'm reading a different version of this, but it's all good. Number 4, commercialize university and lab breakthroughs for everyday use. They had a clear vision here. Bring radio communications and home appliances into the ordinary homes. 6, help reconstruct the war-damaged telecom network with new technology. 7, produce high-quality radios and the service infrastructure a new era will require. 8, promote public science education. Wow.
It's crazy. That first point that like the
bombed out factory 1946 reality, bombed out factories, rationing, focus on heavy industry for reconstruction. Yeah,
like that first point, that the kind of the first point is this sense of like excellence and full expression of the human spirit. Like that's such a I don't know, it's just like such a powerful point to start on. It's one of the things that I've been really I was really inspired by when we started talking like a year ago about what it was that you wanted to pursue. I've seen it with like what Fahad and 535 want to do, and with a lot of the projects that I've been really excited about is this sense of like look, if we're not pursuing like this kind of like full expression as like a first point, if we're not having fun, if we're not doing this in like the best possible way, the other points, we know they're not going to hit to the degree that we want anyway. Something like that.
That book is called Made in Japan.
Made in Japan.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if you were the one who told me about that, but
I don't think so.
it's good. I think I've read it already. It's really good. The story of like, it's like a lot of honor in it, and like it's cool. Yeah, this is the book. It's really fucking good. I love the name Sony. Really good name, Sony. So one thing that I think is interesting about this is like thinking about all this in context of like Canada, right? Because it's like, is there an agreed upon like understanding, I guess, if about the current state of Canada? Like we read the thing about like the thing about China, and it's like, at least the way it was described in this ChatGPT thing, it was like it described it as they were like down and out.
Yeah.
Right? They were essentially at like a dead end of like the previous way of doing things. And it sounded like they were like, we really need to change things. Let's use like a completely different approach. And that approach led to really incredible output over like a short period of time. I wonder if there was at that time, if there was like an agreed upon understanding of like the current state, you know, of them. Cause like the way it's described in that like text I read, it's like it's like a dead end. But yeah, I wonder, cause like I feel like like when you read it that way, like when you read it as a story, it's really easy to show it like in one particular way. This is a dead end. This character is down and out. But I think like the reality of going through the situation is not always like that. Maybe it is. I don't know. So yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like my sense with both Japan in 1946 and then China in like 1978, that in both those cases, it would have been kind of like unquestionable that the situation was bad
in China,
but both in like Japan 1946, China 1978. I think that like everyone was had total clarity.
Yes,
we are not like things that couldn't get worse. In
yes,
some
for
sense.
sure.
And I think so I do think that's very powerful because it creates this sense of urgency, this like motivation, this very clear sense that like we're in A and we need to get to B.
Yes.
And we're going to figure out how to get to B.
Oh, we're fucked.
Yeah, we are currently fucked. So it just gets better in some sense. I think for like my sense talking to people with Canada is that there is definitely some shared sense amongst people, and there has been for like years, that like something's not like working the way that they expect it to, the way that they want it to, from kind of like an economic perspective. Like they're paying too much for their houses. They're not able to do as interesting work. They look at their neighbors in the US and they're like, wow, they're so rich compared to me.
Yeah.
Like there's a general, like we're not doing interesting company building or something.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely a sense like that amongst, I'd say there's at least enough of a shared sense of that all of the political parties say that. That you know, if you look on like mainstream media, it's like the common refrain. Twitter, definitely, that's the common refrain. I think though that you get a big spectrum of what that means compared to something like this, because it's not like we're living in like bombed out factories or something like that. You know, like for a lot of people, their quality of life is like
still pretty good.
Or if they're like in certain demographics, it's like good. You know, it's like they don't really have many problems. And so. I don't know that there's that same. It certainly doesn't feel to me like we have the kind of urgency and motivation that you'd have had in a 1946 Japan or 1978 China. And yeah, that would be my sense. Though it does feel like there's a general sense, mostly prompted by these pretty dramatic statements and changes in the U.S. That like the way we have been doing things will not be good enough to ensure that we are, have a good quality of life at least going forward.
Yeah. Canada in mid-2025, a quick situational readout might be useful. Real GDP growth is 1.6% overall. It's going to be interesting reading these numbers in context of these China numbers. 2.1% annualized Q2 2024. Let's see here. Macro picture, muddling through growth. With real GDP inching forward at 1.5%, Canada is neither in recession nor in a post-pandemic boom. Immigration is keeping headline growth positive, but per capita output has slipped for 2 consecutive years. That plus a rising jobless rate is weighing on consumer confidence. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 2, inflation and rates almost back to normal, but fragile. CPI has glided back to 2%, helped by cheaper gasoline and discounting in telecoms. The Bank of Canada started an easing cycle, yet warns that a U.S. 25% blanket tariff on Canadian goods announced in January could rekindle both inflation and recession risks. Can you just quickly say what the tariff thing is?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because there's been like so much back and forth. Like that's,
it's already outdated.
It changes like day to day.
Okay.
Very roughly, the U.S. has decided to use tariffs as this massive economic policy to shift the nature of geopolitical relationships and also to raise revenue and change the nature of their economy. So far, it appears that Canada specifically, which is the U.S.'s largest single trading partner, it is a very large U.S. trading partner from our perspective, is the bulk of our kind of trade relationships, is going to be a particular target for how these change over time.
Which thing? What will be the target?
Canada. From the U.S.'s perspective, how to change the relationship with Canada will be a particularly important target.
Why is that?
The framing from the U.S. administration is that their geopolitical relationships, both from a trade perspective as well as from other things like security, people flows, drug flows, that they've been seriously taken advantage of by other countries, and that in a variety of different ways, like we've had unfair trade practices or we've taken advantage of their security umbrella, that kind of thing. And because Canada is so close to the US, in some sense, if you think that countries that have a really integrated relationship with the US are taking advantage of them, Canada is going to be framed as one of the largest takers from that perspective. I think that in terms of how true that is, my sense is my read of it is from a security perspective, yes, like Canada has massively taken advantage of the US military being this kind of backstop to make sure that like our borders are secure and so forth. We've underinvested in our own military. You can decide whether or not military investment is a good thing, but that's like fair from a relationship perspective. From a trade perspective, for sure there are like small things where there's been negotiations where Canada has benefited. On the whole, though, the relationship with the US is Canada creates a ton of raw materials like oil, aluminum, these kinds of things, ships them to the US, often at like very good prices. And then the US refines those and uses them and sells them. And so it doesn't strike me that there's a seriously unfair trade relationship, but for sure we'll figure that out, and they'll get into the details.
Okay, so I'll keep going here with this. Labor market wobble. Employment creation has flattened since autumn. The 0.3 pp jump in unemployment over 2 months is concentrated in young workers and construction trades. Soft demand and higher financing costs explain most layoffs. Housing, from frenzy to drift. Higher mortgage rates and a flood of completions means national prices are 3 to 4% below a year ago. CREA now expects a tiny negative 0.3% price decline for 2025. Markets such as Alberta still post gains while Ontario and BC slip. Fiscal and political reset. April's snap election produced a Mark Carney Liberal minority, elected largely on a promise to defend supply chains against U.S. tariffs and pivot from population to productivity. The new cabinet has made housing supply, NATO-level defense spending, and trade diversification its early pillars. Number 6, trade ties and the China angle. China's slowdown and bilateral rifts already shrank Canadian exports to China by negative 2.5% in 2024, widening $31 billion goods deficit. What is this China slowdown and bilateral rifts thing?
Very high level, I think what they're talking about is China's economy is weaker at the moment than it's been for the last 20 odd years. I think by weaker, I actually don't know the most up-to-date numbers, but it's going to be something like they're posting 4% annual growth versus like 7% annual growth. But because so much of the global growth has been driven by China over the last 25 years, when China is growing at 4% versus 7 or even like 3% or something, it makes a huge impact to the rest of the economy. So that's what they mean by the Chinese slowdown. Yeah. And then in terms of bilateral rifts, I assume what they mean is all of the like trading relationship punch-ups driven by the US that are now happening between China and other places.
So it says Ottawa's Indo-Pacific strategy is pushing firms towards, I don't know what this means, but ASEAN and India. But the U.S. still absorbs 73% of goods exports, a vulnerability now laid bare by the tariff fight. So if the relationship changes, it's a huge problem, right, for Canada, I guess.
Yeah. Just to say, ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So it's like Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore.
I'm learning, man. Okay. And for commodities, China still matters. Wheat and canola sales perked up again in May after drought-driven Chinese purchases. Structural levers in motion. Population and housing. Lower immigration targets and a cap on student visas aim to ease rental demand but risk tightening future labor supplies. Climate policy pivot. Scrapping the consumer carbon levy is popular in high-cost provinces but complicates the 2030 emissions pathways just as wildfires and U.S. green subsidies accelerate. AI and industrial strategy. Ottawa is funneling billions into domestic compute and clean tech credits to keep pace with U.S. CHIPS Act and Europe's IPCEI. Bottom line. Canada in 2025 is a high-income economy running at slow forward, buffered by population inflows and still healthy services sector, yet is exposed on 3 fronts: housing affordability, a soft labor market, and extreme dependence on a newly protectionist United States. The new Carney government, big-ticket AI funds, and a housing build blitz are bets that productivity, not population alone, must carry the next leg of growth. Interesting. Yeah, similar to like kind of the stories that we're seeing, but not as dire, but similar. Similar in the sense that like it seems like there's like a growing understanding that you need more output.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if we're thinking from like a system level description of like Spaceship Earth, my sense is that this is a particularly high urgency moment for Canada for what it should be as part of that system of Spaceship Earth.
Right. So
like I think that yes, we don't have high urgency in the sense that we are like, you know, we're living in bombed out places that we need to like rebuild or something, but in the sense that we have I'll do this actually in the order that's least interesting to me to most interesting to me. Like we have like all these natural resources which are very important for the ability to feed and the ability to house and the ability to create manufacturing globally of all kinds. And whether or not we choose to develop those resources in a way that allows for the economy to grow is incredibly important.
Yeah.
We have, and then I guess the more interesting thing for me is that we have this very unique population in terms of both that it is very talented and that it has a unique global culture. It's the talent is kind of like, we produce all these AI research papers, but we don't turn those into companies, etc., and that kind of thing. And to some degree, the talent, if you're thinking about Spaceship Earth, it's not the end of the world for Spaceship Earth if all of that talent just goes to the US. And then
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter if they all go to the US and work there.
It's just dumb from a economic perspective.
Yeah, so there's costs involved for them to move their families and all of this.
Also, just like the AI research is like taxpayer money, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's just kind of like a dumb system in a way. Yeah. But anyways,
yeah, it's bad for Canada, but perhaps at like the global level, it's not. It's less meaningful. But then the thing that's really interesting to me from this is thinking about that talent and the associated culture. That, as far as I can tell, there has never been a place in human history where you have brought together more people from more backgrounds and had them successfully develop a culture together and a potentially hyper-productive culture together. And it's potentially hyper-productive. It's certainly productive, but could it be hyper-productive? And so I feel like this is a particularly high urgency moment for Canada to decide over the next 100 years. Is this going to be an important part of our global system? One where we provide these incredible natural resources, where we allow the talent here to be as productive as possible, and where we figure out how this kind of nascent culture where we could all work together to create something really incredible emerges. Is there some kind of what should we be doing to make sure that actually happens in some sense?
So I'll just riff. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'll just say some stuff. So I think that one thing that's interesting is when you look at we were looking at the history of that area in China and how it became led to these manufacturing breakthroughs, and how much of it had to do with just the sheer number of individuals that they had access to. I just look at what's happening in Canada. I'm we just don't have that, and when you look at, I don't know how all this mining and whatever it is, accessing natural resources and turning them into useful things for humanity. I don't know how that process works, but I'm going to assume that it requires a bunch of human labor to make that happen. And we can't, it's not that we have a population where we can just reorganize and act on that. Right. And so, I guess you would need people to go and do this stuff, which means that you would need, an influx of individuals that are coming in that are willing to do that.
Right? I actually, we do actually have, a large population of very sophisticated people in mining, oil and gas, these kind of things. We do have huge industries that, in the same way that you could scale up a TSMC plant from one plant to 2 plants once you have that kind of core of knowledge. We do have the same.
I need to study this.
So
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, in terms, and it's both in terms of we have large mining companies that have the equipment and all that kind of stuff, but we also have the world's top geological engineers and that kind of thing are here already. So I think in terms of scaling it, we can. I do think though that there's a little bit of let's say you have a bunch of really bright 18-year-olds who are currently going to university in Canada and they're thinking about where do they want their careers to go. They could choose in Canada, because we have the people, etc., to go become geological engineers or to become mining experts and help to develop the Ring of Fire in Northern Ontario, right? That could be a life path for them. And it could be one where they make a lot of money, do really interesting technical work, and generally produce great outcomes for our system as well as for themselves. But I don't know the degree to which we as a country are like proud of that, and
Yeah.
like,
Like, what do you
and
mean?
talk about it. Like, I don't know how many 18-year-olds who are super ambitious going into
think about
university think, wow, I have a unique opportunity to work in geological science
Yeah.
that I get as an inheritance just from being in this country,
Yeah.
that could be a great for me and great for the world. But I just like, I don't know how many are thinking that and then going like seeking out the ability to go down that career path, that kind of
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's like a cultural thing too, right? It's like when you think about like China, right? It's like you mentioned that at so many different points they were like a very powerful country, a very powerful culture. I mean, they still are. I'm just saying they were like in a so they had like pride in their like culture and their like heritage. And so when they're like down, that there's like thousands of years of like culture that is informing what they're doing. And it's like here it's like, I don't know, maybe that's like not there as much, because it sounds like what you were saying, like when we were looking at that image and you were talking about like the fight, it almost sounds like what you're describing was maybe they were like, hey, we got to do what needs to be done, you know. And that's like we need to do what needs to be done to like rebuild our country. And yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if that kind of like vibe and that energy exists here. Maybe it will one day or something.
Well, so my sense, one of my senses with this is that vibe does exist.
Yeah.
In with restaurateurs in a plaza in Scarborough.
Yeah.
Right. Like and actually we have, I think we have like a concentration of that vibe with a lot of people who have moved to Canada to create a better way of life for themselves. Right. And it's different. It's obviously it's different in terms of like where it comes from, how it's formed, etc. But I do feel that there's some kind of real potential emergent identity there that is like really powerful.
Okay, so let's say that you could like shift the culture, and then like you can like figure out how to capture these like resources and stuff like that. So that's like one angle. Like that's where like one way it happens. This is just me riffing, but like another way that it could happen is like through robotics, right? Where it's like you have like specific kinds of robots that go into like these areas, and they do like the work that needs to be like done. Like if you have like a sculptor, right? Let's say a sculptor, a human sculptor has gotten to a point where they can do a specific kind of sculpture in a way where they're like commissioned, right? Someone will pay them and they can produce a sculpture that is like beautiful and consistently executed to the point where someone's like, hey, I'll pay you X whatever to do this, and they know they're going to get like a good result back. Let's say that it takes that sculptor to get to a point where they can do that like 10, 15 years. Let's just, for the sake of the conversation, let's just say like 10 years. So now this sculptor wants to get to a point where he's like maybe getting older or something, or wants to like make more sculptures. And so he gets like an apprentice, and an apprentice sculptor comes on, and let's say this sculptor is like really gifted. And he's so gifted that he can like shorten the amount of time that it takes to get good at this. And like, it's not going to be like 3 years, you know, but maybe it'll be like 8, you know what I mean? And like he gets to that skill level. It's like 8 years. We got like another like master sculptor or whatever. The cool thing about robotics is that once one robot learns something, you can make a million robots that can do that thing like basically like instantly. And that's what I think is like really interesting about the current time.
Yeah.
And when you look at like the current types of technology that are all like converging, you know, it's really interesting to think about the kinds of robots that we might have, the kinds of moving computers that we might have. And like, yeah. And I think that, that seems like the most, that seems like the way that we would move forward, you know? I don't know if Canada's going to do that, you know. I think, yeah.
just because it's super relevant. Do you know Monumental Labs?
No. Sounds familiar.
So I'm
Do you want to eat something, by the way?
It's Monumental. I'm okay.
Okay.
I could eat after this. So Monumental Labs is doing what you just said. They're making robots as master craftsmen for architecture and sculpture, and so they're creating these things. And
holy shit!
They can now produce like Greek statue quality, gorgeous things out of marble or in all of these different like formats. It's gorgeous. There's some like amazing stuff that they're doing. This is a total aside.
Go to sculpture, architecture. Click all this.
I want to work with these guys to create new sculptures in Toronto of our heroes and people that really matter to us. And I want to create a sculpture of Jean Lumb, who was this restaurateur and activist who helped create Chinatown, like the Chinatown that exists in Spadina. Her name is Jean Lumb. I think I've got that right. And Lumb. UMB. I think it'll autocorrect. Yeah, Jean Lumb. So, restaurateur and also kind of like social activist, helped to change federal regulation around how Chinese people could immigrate to Canada. Also helped to like establish the current Chinatown in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
And I want to make like a statue of her.
So what did she do exactly?
So she did three things. First, she had a very successful restaurant.
What was it called? And does it still exist?
I don't think it's...
First restaurateur to receive the Order of Canada for her community work. Wow. Can you go up a sec? Most notably, do you know her? Most notably, she was recognized for her pivotal role in changing Canada's immigration laws that separated Chinese families, and for her contribution in saving Toronto's first Chinatown and Chinatowns in other cities. Wow. Can you keep going down? The mother of 6 children and a grandmother of 9 children, Jean Lumb was the co-owner with her husband, Doyle Lumb, and director of Kwang Chao Restaurant in Toronto for 23 years. You know that restaurant? The restaurant was highly successful and popular with both Chinese and Westerners, with many politicians as clientele due to its proximity to Toronto City Hall. Lumb was very active in community work throughout her life. She was instrumental in organizing the campaigns to save Toronto's first Chinatown from complete demolition and galvanized the community against further expropriation later of remaining portions on Dundas Street. She was also a major force and the sole woman in the 1957 delegation from the Chinese community lobbying the government of John Diefenbaker to repeal the explicit racial discrimination from the immigration laws of the time containing race-based criteria for admission to Canada. She received many firsts in Toronto. This included being the first Chinese woman on the board of governors of the Women College Hospital, the first Chinese woman on the board of University Settlement House, the first Chinese restaurant and first woman to receive the Fran Dec Award for Outstanding Achievement in Toronto's restaurant industry. Holy fuck. The first Chinese Canadian woman to sit on the board of Rotary Lawland Center. I wonder what her role was in this restaurant relative to her husband. Like, was she the chef or... Jean Lumb. Yeah, can you pull up images of the restaurant? It's Lumb. Do they have images of the restaurant? Like, what's the history of this restaurant? When was it open? Like, is there a Wikipedia page for this? I wonder if there's a...
Maybe the foundation will have a good, yeah.
Oh. Jean and Doyle decided to open a restaurant rather than continue the grocery store. In 1959, they opened the restaurant in downtown Chinatown and called it Guangzhou, named after a city in China.
I think it's Guangzhou.
Sorry, Guangzhou.
There's different romanizations. I think it's Guangzhou. I don't know.
Yeah, correct me whenever.
Yeah.
Named after a city in China, famous for its Cantonese cuisine. The restaurant was successful for many years and attracted well-known people over the years, from prime ministers and politicians to movie stars and theater people. What is that? Excerpted from The Spirit of the Dragon. What is that? Is that a book about her?
I don't know. First I've heard of it.
The story.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, click the Amazon description or whatever. Yeah. I don't know, whatever. Let's see Amazon. Might buy it. Is it well illustrated with photographs? Wow, man. When did this book come out? Who's this person? The author. No, go back. Oh, yeah, just look up Arlene Chan. Let's see what she's doing. Author. Yeah. She's... Go to her Wikipedia page. We should try and link up with her. Sure. Is this her? My 7 books about the history and culture and tradition of Chinese in Canada have been published in the last 20 years. I can be found searching for the best food in Chinatown. Damn. We should talk to her. I'm currently serving as the president of the Gene Lumb Foundation. She probably knows some fucking bangers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We should reach out to her. Her website's on Wix.
I'll take it as an action item.
She has events coming up.
Eddie's your mic. She has events coming up?
Toronto Reference Library, 6:30 p.m. May 20th. Chinese Canadian Archives in Toronto, Community Stories and Preservation, archivist Ruby Yuan and Jun Chao with author Arlene Chan in Beaton Hall in the Reference Library.
That's cool.
Dope.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you want to get her to? You want these like AI, like these robotics people to make a statue of thing?
Yeah. So I haven't done any work on this yet, but I actually know even where I want the statue to be.
Wow.
Which is in the on Spadina. There's, I can't remember the name of it, but there's like an apartment building and cultural center where there's currently a statue of Sun Yat-sen, and there's a space on the other side where you could put another statue. I need to find out who works there. I bet you Arlene would be like a great person to start to talk to though.
Yeah. Does she have any restaurant recommendations online?
Arlene?
Yeah. I just wonder if she's like ever like, does she have like Twitter or something? Restaurant recommendations, yeah.
Wait, did she write that article, the top one?
Yeah, Toronto Life. Let's see.
No.
5 essential dishes to tell the story of Toronto's Chinatown. Let's see. Go down. What?
Oh.
Wait, what? Oh, yeah.
Chan's mother. Oh, wait, yeah.
I'm at Yu Tung, the Hakka Chinese restaurant where I last ate with Chinatown historians. Who's Leo Chan? We're starting here in the shadow. This is cool, man. So I guess this article is like this person went with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks
So
like...
yeah, this would be a fun project.
It looks like Jean Lumb was Arlene's mother, if that's...
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah.
What?
Arlene
Chan's her daughter.
Jin Lumb.
Oh.
That's cool.
Leo Chan is her husband.
That's cool.
Wow. Yeah, we got to talk to her, man.
Yeah.
Super interesting. This is the restaurant they were at?
Yeah,
This was the site of our first... I don't know what that said there. You have to go up like... This was the site of our first Chinatown, Arlene says. Up until the Second World War, Chinatown was considered a place you didn't go unless you were Chinese. Back then, after the war, Chinatown restaurants opened up. Nanking, Lychee. What is the oldest Chinese restaurant in Toronto? Let's see. Oldest still running.
Yuetang.
Oh.
Yeah.
literally the one we were looking at.
Is it still running?
Yeah, it's open.
Open their like Google Maps page. See the reviews. This is it? Wow. Is there a way to see images? Oh yeah, okay. It's Hakka?
Yeah.
What? No, this can't be right. Maybe they adapted their cuisine over time or something.
Yo, this looks really good.
Can you go back? I think I'm hungry right now, so. Let's see. Do they have a website?
Yeah, we did. I was on it.
Website. Oh, sorry, that was it. Go to the menu. Wait, birthplace of what?
Hakka.
Oh, this is the birthplace of Hakka-inspired chili chicken? Like in the whole world?
Nah, not in the whole world.
Toronto.com said it.
Toronto.com?
Who
The
is
fuck?
Who is Toronto.com?
Wait. Is the birthplace. Wow. Chili chicken. The Friday lunch hour at the Yutong is busy, and it started early. The stairs leading up to the second floor restaurant on Elizabeth Street at Dundas Street eats are packed, but the lineup to pay for a meal is longer still, wafting between booths and tables in the early afternoon. To one side, local office workers stand by patiently for takeout orders they've called in, while at a table, a group of Toronto City councillors on a break from a council meeting wait to place their orders. Who are these guys, man? Over everything, the distinct scent of garlic, ginger, and of course, chili pepper hangs like a familiar blanket. It's the scent of Yu Tong's signature dish, chili chicken. Everyone gets it, says Sonam Wango. Fuck, I need to try this, man. I need to try the chili chicken there, man.
Let's get it. Let's go for lunch.
Yeah. How far is this from here?
It's not that far.
Well, it's next to City Hall, right?
Do they do takeouts?
Probably, yeah. It just said they do take out.
Chili chicken?
Nah, it looks really good.
We need to just validate that this is like what that means if it's like the birthplace of chili chicken.
That's
How do you spell it? U-Y-U-H-T-U-N-G. So I read that is the birthplace of chili chicken. Is this true? Is there any way? What does that say?
Dude, it might be true.
The birthplace of Hakka-inspired chili chicken in a culinary context. What the fuck? Is often associated. Isn't chili chicken? Okay, I don't know like a lot about Hakka food, but as far as I understand, chili chicken is like isn't that the most popular Hakka dish? Or it's like up there. It's like top 3.
Yeah.
Go back to the thing that you said, that AI thing that you were just, yeah.
Can we get a history of Hakka?
Yeah.
I feel like
idea.
that would help clarify this.
Yes, I will look that up. It's like Indian Chinese food, right?
Yeah, Indo-Chinese.
Typing like a madman. I'm getting 03 on this too, but
Yeah, read 03.
Hakka cuisine, a fusion of Chinese cooking styles and local ingredients, is a product of the Hakka people's migration and cultural adaptation. So what are the Hakka people? Hakka are unique. This AI overview stuff has gotten really good. The Hakka are a unique ethnic group within the larger Han Chinese population, primarily known for their distinct language, culture, and history of migration and settlement. They are often referred to as guest families or guest people, indicating their origins as migrants from northern China. I don't understand this.
This is really cool.
I don't understand.
Can we go into the Wikipedia page quickly? I just want to see like the dates that they're describing this.
Lower?
Yes, please.
You should read it. Whatever.
More?
Can you click on the Hakka diaspora section? It's yeah.
Hakka food is extremely interesting, man. Like, it's worth studying, I feel.
It's really interesting. So my sense with this article, I'm not quite sure, is that there's been these big waves of out-migration from China since like the 1700s.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a large portion of that is from this kind of this particular group, the Hakka.
I think I got something
really
here.
interesting.
Hakka literally translates to guest families.
If you go up to the top of this, I think they had that. I think it's Kejia, which is that.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it
Kejia.
is. Yeah.
Refers to a Han Chinese subgroup that began a series of southbound migrations from China's Central Plains as early as 4th century CE, fleeing wars and famine. Waves continued through Song, Ming, and Qing periods, ultimately concentrating communities in the rugged hill country straddling today's Guangdong, Fujian, and Jiangxi provinces. Their outsider status, mobile lifestyle, and harsh new environment shaped a distinct language, architecture, and importantly, a cuisine built for thrift and travel. Foundations of mountain peasant food. In rocky, poor soil, the Hakka relied on pork, preserved greens, and plenty of salt. Flavor comes from techniques rather than expensive spices. Slow braises that soften tough cuts. Salt curing, pickling, and dried ingredients that could be carried on the road. Classic dishes: salt-baked chicken, pork belly with preserved mustard greens, stuffed tofu and vegetables, and the herb nut rice bowl leisha. All reflects this ethos of durability, economy, and intense. From the hills to the sea, the southern diaspora. Beginning in the 18th century, Hakka miners, merchants, and laborers moved again, this time overseas. They carried their food waste to Taiwan, now home to the largest Hakka population outside of the mainland, to Malaysia and Singapore, where Leicha stalls hawker centers, and to Indonesia and Thailand, where stuffed tofu became street food staples. Calcutta, the birth of Hakka Chinese. So that's probably why we were seeing like the Indo thing. Maybe that's like the best known offshoot of Hakka cooking isn't actually purely Hakka. It's the Indo-Chinese hybrid invented by Hakka tanners in Kolkata's Teretta Bazaar. Can you pull up Teretta Bazaar? I have this thing where I'm like getting really into like plazas.
Yeah.
In these kinds of like countries, like in Kenya and shit like this.
You got to see the hawker centers in Singapore at some point.
Yeah.
They are this like fascinating blend of you take a true plaza that came from, and it's really important actually, I think, for thinking about like our plazas, that you take like one of these like emergent plazas that you'd find in a place like Kenya, but then you create these beautiful specific spaces for them, which are like built from scratch, but allow for each of the stalls to still have their kind of unique character. And I think it's really important to think about like what that might look like in a place like Toronto.
So this is like, there's some shit here that's kind of interesting. Okay, let's see this. And later, Tungra neighborhood from the late 1700s onwards, using soy sauce and wok frying techniques, but seasoning with garlic, ginger, fresh green chili, and vinegar to suit local palates. They created dishes such as chili chicken, Manchurian gravies, and Hakka noodles. While many Kolkata Hakka left India after 1962, they brought the Indo-Chinese canon to Toronto, Vancouver, New York, the Caribbean, and beyond. That's why in Canadian cities, Hakka food usually means fiery chili chicken and soft Hakka noodles rather than salt-baked chicken or lecha. Meanwhile, other branches of the diaspora, example in Jamaica or Mauritius,
Mauritius.
fused Hakka techniques with local peppers or curry leaves, producing yet more variants. So hold on a sec. So this is saying like the chili chicken. So let's see. It says globally, the Indo-Chinese dish chili chicken is widely credited to Mumbai-born chef Nelson Wang. Can you look that? Who says he improvised it at the Cricket Club of India in 1975. Then I don't know what it's saying here. It's like Toronto, Canada, very likely family histories, local press profiles, and the restaurant owns material all agree that Yu Tung, pronounced Ya Tung, introduced chili chicken to Toronto in 1986, making it the first place Canadians encountered the dish. So maybe not an absolute world history sense. Interesting. I think it'd be worth diving into this dish. It probably has an interesting story.
Yeah.
Because even what it's saying. Oh yeah. Nelson Wang is an Indian restaurateur of Chinese descent and the founder of China Garden. Wasn't that a huge restaurant? China Garden sounds familiar. Isn't this like a huge chain or something? I don't know. Whatever. Let's go back. Whatever. So, various sources credit him with the invention of the popular Indian Chinese dish, chicken Manchurian. That's a different dish. Oh, you have something highlighted here. This guy is interesting too. Nelson Wang. He started by taking the basic ingredients of so wait. According to Wang himself, he was a cook at the Cricket Club of India. A customer asked him to create a new dish different from what was available on the menu. He started taking the basic ingredients of an Indian dish, mainly chopped. Oh, no, but this is chicken Manchurian. That's different, right? Than chili chicken. Let's see.
I think it might be referring to the same thing.
Let me see.
Can we pull up a recipe for chili chicken and chicken Manchurian?
Yeah. Even a YouTube video of how it's made could be cool.
It's less spicy and sweeter than chili chicken.
Yeah. So chili chicken needs to be investigated. Because I don't think they would. It seems odd that they would just be like touting that explicitly if they weren't confident. It's like a very specific thing to say, you know, that this specific this is where you know, chili chicken and chicken Manchurian are related dishes, both staples of Indo-Chinese cuisine, but they have distinct differences. Key differences are chili chicken focuses on spice and heat, while chicken Manchurian leans towards sweet and sour balance. Yeah. Is this a video of how to make chili chicken? Does that have audio?
One of the things I think about when I see...
Does this have any other... This is a street food thing? This is a really good channel. I've never seen this. Can you search Manchurian chicken here?
On this channel?
Yeah. I've never seen... This is a really... Street food from around the world. Wow. This is cool.
Yeah.
Mumbai. Yeah, sorry, you were saying?
Oh, I was saying, I started putting it into that like little basket.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think about is like, how is our society doing versus, like Indian society, Chinese society? Like, do we have the metal we need to like move forward? And it's like, I don't think microplastics exist in India. Like we're like, oh man, all these microplastics is gonna like really mess us up. It's gonna like with the microplastics, we're done for. I don't think microplastics is a major concern.
Yeah, no. So are you gonna click one of these? What's up? How to make? What's the first one? Yeah, let's just click that.
Take control of your health. Your
Rice is the most common pairing with Hakka food. Steam, steamed white rice balances spicy dishes like chili chicken or Manchurian. Fried rice, often ordered as complement, offering a flavorful combination. Noodles also very popular.
Hakka noodles are so good.
Yeah, I know you like them. Yeah, man. I really, really love food, man. It's good. Yeah. So, Jean Lumb. Yeah. So, yeah. She. I wonder. I wonder. Like, it would be interesting to just.
Can I ask for a photo? So if you search Jean Lumb and then go to images, there's a photo that I feel like is just so cool that I want to have up as we talk about this.
Yeah.
It is the second from the far right on the first row.
Yeah.
You've shown us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I haven't seen this.
Look how sick that photo is.
Yeah.
That's
can you go full screen?
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, and then
How did you find out about this person?
I'm not sure. It was the fourth Viaduct lecture at the beginning of this year fell on Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give a story about the Chinese community in Toronto.
Oh yeah, I've heard it. I've seen. I think I saw this in your like lecture thing with new systems in the back.
Yeah. I shared this, and I think that like
interesting. Yeah. So go on.
And so I think I came across it as part of like looking for that story, but then afterwards I was like, this is
Very
a crazy
interesting,
story. And I feel like she's in many ways what I think of as like the archetype for the kind of heroes that Toronto has, but doesn't know how to celebrate enough. Like I really do think we should have like a statue of her, like in the center of the city that people should talk about constantly. There's another photo on this page. You don't need to go to it, but of her with Diefenbaker when she's like doing this. She's gone with this delegation for changing the immigration laws as well, and it's like really powerful. These kind of photos that tell a huge story like that.
So does that chili chicken place do takeout?
Yeah.
You want to get that?
Yeah,
definitely.
You want to do that? Let's do it.
Want me to order?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I wonder. This kind of stuff is like really interesting. Like I think it's cool because you look at like the history of this person, like what this person believed, like what they did, and then I think it's cool. Also, just in terms of like it's inspiring in the sense of like as a reference for like a way to live, like this idea that like a person has like this like restaurant and then they have like these values, they have like a mission, they're like going and doing stuff, they're like helping their local community, they have like purpose, it's like it's like really cool. But it's also what I like is like when you go into these pockets of research or whatever, these like rabbit holes, every now and then you find a thing that like still exists or a person that is like connected to this, that is like still alive and like whatever, like dedicated their life to a particular thing. It's cool that you can like interact with that world in a way through that. Like that restaurant exists, so you can like order chili chicken or whatever, right? Like we can eat it. It's just really cool. And when you, I feel like when you participate in like when you interact with those things, you feel connected to that like history.
Yeah.
Which is like another thing that I like, that I really like, is it's kind of like the payoff of the going down these rabbit holes is finding something that I can interact with today that makes me connected to that time,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I wonder about like the restaurant progression. I don't know why, but like I wonder about it, like knowing that restaurant is still exists. It's like one of the older restaurants, Ya Tung, I think it was called. Ya Tung. It's like knowing that, and so then it makes me think like, okay, cool. Like, then it makes me want to like map out all the restaurants in that area, like and like in Chinatown, and like group them into categories, and like try to understand which restaurant is related to which other restaurant. Like then it's like, okay, cool. So if this is like where chili chicken, like what is chili chicken? Like How do you make chili chicken? Did chili chicken really originate here? What are like how good is the chili chicken in that place? What's the best chili chicken in Toronto? What's the best chili chicken in the world? Going deeper and deeper and deeper into that thing. It's just, I don't know why. It's just so fun, you know? And then it's like, at this restaurant, it's like, how much of a banger is their chili chicken? Like, how many people are really going? Did it just originate there? Are people like lined up for this chili chicken? What are the adjacent dishes? Like, okay, the chili chicken's a banger. What other bangers do they have on the menu? You know, Who's the chef who's making this? Who's the chef that made the first chili chicken? Who's making the chili chicken now? How did he learn how to make the chili chicken? Well, how has the ingredients of how the chili chicken changed? Is it the same chili chicken that they were making like when it first popped off? Are they adamant about keeping it the same? Has it evolved in some way? Yeah. You know, it's just so much fun, man, to do that. Yeah.
I also love with these, and I experienced this when I was talking about Gene Lumb, that you go into all of these details, you unpack all of these things, and then out of it often emerges like a story. And there's all these different questions, but then you find out some particular factoid or some particular kind of like element of this.
Yeah.
And for me, often I'll hear something and then I'll think, oh wow, there's this story here. There's like one particular story that tells you something really important about like human life or the city or the world or this person. And it's kind of like how then telling that story feels to me like a very like spiritual act. It feels like, you know, this thing emerged out of like an investigation, and then like telling that story feels like it's honoring some spirit that previously hadn't had a chance to express itself or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think part of it is also just like, part of it is like surfacing something that maybe hasn't been surfaced in a way that like you're imagining or whatever. But the other thing that I find interesting about diving into these like rabbit holes as well is like it's also just I feel like it's a way of understanding myself. You know, so why am I interested in these things? You know, and like maybe I can get closer to understanding it. What is this?
Sherry got these from Summit and Chai.
From what?
From Summit and Chai. I think it's a good Jewish bakery nearby.
Oh, sick.
You want to try one?
Yeah, sure.
You want to open it up?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a way of like understanding myself too. You know, why am I interested in this? What can I learn from this? What does it mean to I don't know, like what is the extent to which I can understand this? Is interesting. Nice. What's this called again?
It's from this place called Summit and Chai.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bagel shop. It's nearby. They do Turkish bagels.
Where is it?
It's close to us.
It's on King, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a more cracker-like shortbread. Like it has a little more crunch.
You've had this before?
No, I'm just processing it.
It's really good.
Little essence, yeah.
I ordered Yutong.
Let's go.
What'd you get?
I got. So
Better say chili
I
chicken.
think if you're trying,
What?
well, you've had Hakka before. We've all had Hakka before.
Please tell me you got rice.
Yeah, I got.
All right.
I only got noodle. I think you have to try like the dry version and then like the wet version.
Chili chicken?
Because there's like people have their preferences. I personally like wet, like the
Same.
But I was like, let's just try the dry too.
All right.
So I got rice and 2 chickens and some noodles.
Yeah, so.
Sweet. I also love the noodles. So
Yeah. Well,
Exciting.
what's funny is that if you went on Uber Eats, it was like the number 1, 2, 3 things ordered was exactly what I got.
Oh, so what were they?
The wet chicken, the dry chicken, and the Hakka noodle.
Oh,
sick.
That's like the go-tos.
really good. We should go there if this is good.
Yeah.
I think we should probably go check this place out.
Can you show it on a map, actually?
Yeah.
So I wanted your perspective on something too.
Me.
No. Definitely not you.
My bad. Here.
So this is just a fun fact. So the original Chinatown.
Oh,
So you see where City Hall.
this is it.
You see where City Hall is.
Yeah.
The original Chinatown is actually next to where this restaurant is. There's that little strip of Chinese restaurant, Chinese, and I think there's Korean and Vietnamese restaurants as well there, on Dundas Street. That's actually the first Chinatown, and it used to be a much larger area. Most of it was demolished as part of creating the City Hall. But the little bit that's been preserved was because of the work that Gene Lumb did, was to preserve that. That kind of like that small strip on Dundas. And then also, and I don't know the full history for this, I actually want to talk to Arlene about it, but my understanding is she was also then instrumental in kind of moving a lot of the Chinatown to Spadina, where it is today. But yeah, all of that area there is actually the original Chinatown. So it's cool that this is there because it implies that it was part of like the very first set of restaurants.
We should go check this area out more.
It's funny because if you walk down like this strip, like every other restaurant is like a Chinese restaurant
Or Asian.
Or, like,
I think there was a
Asian.
Japanese joint there.
Yeah.
So there's like remnants of this.
Right there. What is that green place? Go back. That one.
And
What's
then
this?
the moment you pass like university, it's like you're like in Baldwin area.
Turn look,
Range.
rotate it right. Yeah. Keep going. Then what's this? What's
This
that? Japanese. Yeah.
Kyoto House.
All you can eat. Damn. Yeah. So, I've been thinking a lot about like food, and I wanna understand like what it means to dive into a particular dish or cuisine and just like understand it, you know. Yeah, not just like as a way of like understanding the area around me, you know. So like for example, there's like Hakka food, let's just say as an example, right? Like what does it mean for me to have an understanding of Hakka food to the point to at a level of proficiency as a person here in this area that's like interested in writing and understanding and capturing things and synthesizing things for myself? What does it mean to achieve a level of proficiency in of Hakka food where I can like walk away from it, where it's like I know it, you know? Like it's probably like for me it would be like, okay, what is the origin? What is the origin of like what is it? It's I don't know why, but I feel like I'm drawn to do these things, right? And so what is like who are these like Hakka people? Where do they live? Can I go there? Just even like a short visit, or is it possible for me to understand it through talking to people here? What are the primary Hakka dishes, the main ones? What are the main Hakka restaurants in the Greater Toronto area, the best ones? Can I go to all of them? Can I talk to their staff or like the chef, see what the kind of top dishes are? Can I learn how to cook them? A couple of them. Understand what it means. Can I write an essay about it? Can I go to these restaurants and take photos? Can I capture my experiences eating at these places for the first time? Can I understand the history of these places? Can I understand the way that they're related to each other, whether the people working at the restaurants and on the projects are consciously aware of that or not? How can I map all of that out? How can I capture it, put it out into the world so I can be fucking done with like Hakka food? And I think about that like across like a lot of different like areas, you know, like these kind of like open loops that form in my mind, and they kind of like they just kind of a little bit like they like stress me out, you know, like because I want to close them. Like I feel very drawn to them, like even like Japanese, even like Japanese food and like Japanese like curry or whatever, or like understand. Like I feel very drawn to close these loops.
I feel like the that sense of being done, that sense of like of closing the loop, it's kind of like it's that sense itself feels like a skill that you can cultivate. That takes you very different places. Like something I think about a lot is that you know how there's like proofs for things in mathematics?
Yeah.
The proof is I wrote this in a certain way and the community of mathematicians thinks it's true.
Yeah.
Like that's actually like, it's not like provable beyond that,
well,
right? Like
can't they prove it? Like
so to give you an example, like there was Fermat's last theorem, which is I believe that there is no cubed. You can't add one cube of a number to another cube of a number and get a third cube of a number. So you can't, like, x cubed plus y cubed will never equal z cubed.
Yeah.
And there was a person who believed he had a proof for this, and he gave it to the community of mathematicians, and they said, yes, you've proven Fermat's last theorem. And then like a year later or something, or like 6 months later, there was one mathematician who came along, read this proof and said, actually, in line whatever in this area, this isn't true for this reason.
Yeah.
And then it was unproven, because once he convinced the rest of the community of mathematicians of this, they were like, oh yeah, you're right, that's not true. This guy, happy ending to the story, this guy went away, he came up with a different proof, it did prove it, like, you know, he proved Fermat's last theorem, etc. But I think that like that's really insightful for thinking about like how does proof work in mathematics? It's when people get this sense that it is true en masse.
Interesting.
Right? Like there's no like formal proof for mathematics beyond that.
I thought it was based on like, this is gonna sound dumb, but I thought like you would do the math. Like,
it's not dumb. Like that's what I thought too until I really started to think about this. But doing the maths is there's a certain way of feeling like the loop is closed that they have cultivated over time. So like in mathematics communities, they have like worked and worked and worked to develop this sense of truthfulness that is hyper pristine, hyper logical, like hyper concrete. And then they use that sense of truthfulness to be able to actually agree upon whether or not a proof like works for something, something like that. And I think that this closing the loop is a similar thing. That sense of truthful, like that sense that the loop is closed is a similar thing that you can learn how to do and cultivate by watching people who have gained mastery in some area.
So do you have any insight on how to do that? Like, well, obviously you mentioned like watching people, but like what else? Like how else? Like,
I think the most important one is relationships to masters. Like that seems to be the most important aspect.
Like for something like this, let's just use a Hakka as an example. What does it mean to, like in your definition, what would be what would be required to close the loop?
I feel like that in this thing, like the key thing would be to find like Bourdain or or like people like Bourdain and watch them close the loop on something like whatever it is. And then once you've seen them do that process, you can follow up with it. I'm currently learning a lot from being a fly on the wall for some of Matthew Jordan's work. He's currently doing this research. I can't talk about it, but he's doing this insane research that you're gonna just lose your mind over when you
should talk to him soon
when you hear about his project. But I'm watching him like build up like how he like discovers new pockets of research, how he's like building up his rigor with it, that kind of thing. And I'm learning a lot about what it means to have like real academic rigor with something.
Teach me, man. Teach me.
Yeah, I'll do what I mean, sure. I am the student, so you know, yeah.
So, can you share some of the things that you've learned? I think the idea of like, I think that's like a really interesting point of having reference points for other people that have closed the loop on a particular domain or something like that. That's like a really insightful thing. Yeah.
Well,
I never thought about looking at Anthony Bourdain's work from that perspective, which was like getting whether I got a sense or not of whether he was like done with a particular subject. Like, do I think he was done with it? Yeah. There's other references too. There's this one book that I just like came across. There's like some like, there's this book called, I haven't read it yet, but it's called The Physiology of Taste. Maybe we can like figure out something here. Maybe we can like throw into ChatGPT and like see what the book's about a little bit.
or Meditations on Transcendental Gastronomy.
Yeah. Maybe, is there a Wikipedia page for this?
Oh, wow. It's from the early 1800s.
Wow, that's a sick cover. Okay, I didn't find the Wikipedia page, but
That's all good.
I found the entire book.
This is your book.
Can you go up?
Yeah.
It's interesting, like the way the way he breaks it down, the table of contents. So if you,
Top.
yeah, let's just go to the top. So okay, yeah, just go all the way. Okay, so all right, so meditation. Can you zoom? Yeah. So meditation 1, the senses, right? Number of the senses, action of the sense.
Perfectness.
Yeah, perfectness of the senses, power of the taste, object of the action of the senses. Meditation 2, taste, definition of taste, mechanism of taste, sensation of taste, flavors, influence of smelling on the taste. This is what I mean about, like, I just want to fucking be done with Hakka food. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's like every fucking ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are the pillars of it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
done.
I feel like though there are some people who do these like taxonomy projects. They do these taxonomy projects and they go through and they list like every single element of a thing, but you can tell they're not done with it. You can tell they still haven't like incorporated it into who they are. And then there are other people that they do a bunch of research, but then they really are like done with it at some point. They feel like they've incorporated it into themselves. They understand it fully.
Yeah, I think the way is because you're not just like defining it, but then you start I think like you start blending it with other subjects. You can express how it might be philosophical. You can express how it might be like cultural or artistic. Like you could take it out into this new thing. But I think the other thing is that I feel like that's really important is you have to be able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I think like for example, with if you really understand like Hakka food and the history and the culture and everything, it's like, you know, if you made chili chicken yourself, it'd be really fucking good. You know, maybe it wouldn't be at the level of like a master like chef or like whatever, but it would be like really fucking good, and it would have something that it would have a deeper understanding and expression and voice that even if it's still done in an amateur way, that expresses that understanding.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, but this book, it says, Brillet Savarin investigates eating not merely as sustenance, but as a profound cultural, philosophical, and sensory experience. He famously declared, "Tell me what you eat and I will tell you what you are," establishing the link between food, identity, and society. Key themes and explorations. Food as sensory experience. Explores how taste isn't just about flavor, but involves all senses: smell, sight, touch, sound, and taste itself. Taste is elevated to an art form like music or painting. It becomes a mode of expression and communication. The science of gastronomy, one of the first attempts at a scientific or physiological approach to food. Why do we like what we like? Examines how digestion, appetite, and satiety, how do you say that word? Satiety operate. Talks about nutrition, digestion, and the connection between dietary habits and well-being. Pleasure and moderation. Central philosophy is that gastronomic pleasure is an essential human pursuit. Argues pleasure should be embraced and thoughtfully cultivated, not excess but deliberate enjoyment. Identifies moderation as critical to maintaining pleasure. Excess dulls appreciation. Uses anecdotes, humor, and social commentary. Philosophical insights on eating. Food is identity, patterns, and styling. Anyways, yeah.
It's like the Principia of food.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like when I'm saying like being like done with it. I don't know if I would go like this deep, but I like the idea of doing this, you know, and like I like the idea of capturing this and like build and like putting it all together and combining it with like questions and thoughts and like ramblings and experiences, as well as like talking to people and deep diving. And I like the idea of putting it all together to try and fully understand my relationship with something, you know?
This is this may be a bit of a tangent, but I read a book that this reminds me of called Paper Belt on Fire.
Yeah.
And it's this, it's actually more like a memoir from this guy, Michael Gibson. And he's he along with, Danielle, I believe her last name is Strackman. I'm embarrassed I can't remember it, but it's Michael and Danielle. They started this fund 1517. They originally created the Teal Fellowship. It's an amazing book.
I think you've told me about this one before. You told me to read it.
It's a really fun book, and it actually reminds me of this because it's this interweaving of like anecdote and historical narrative and economics and philosophy and science and like a worldview. And it's not like a coherent subject. Like maybe I could say that like the subject of this is old elite institutions related to knowledge production and their decay, something like that. Like
Yeah.
I could say that's the subject, but it's more about like, it's almost like it feels like Michael had a period of his life and he's processed all of that into this package and he's done with it. And he's got that he's got a full piece that.
Is there a way to see what this book is about a little bit more?
Maybe if there's an excerpt. It's one of those books that's very hard to categorize though, because it does switch from like philosophy to economics to just
It's
like
called
an anecdote.
It's called Paper Belt on Fire, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. As a manifesto, memoir, and exploration of the ways traditional education, institutional gatekeeping, and bureaucracy stifle innovation, and how alternative rebellious paths might ignite radical progress. Gibson coins the term paper belt to describe the established network of elite universities, credential-driven institutions, government bureaucracies, and conventional media. He argues these entities produce credentials, pieces of paper that symbolize prestige, but often fail to foster true innovation or meaningful value creation. So maybe this book is a good way of understanding like the modern world, I guess, in some way.
Yeah. Especially like what you might. For me, this was very helpful in thinking about like what you might think about like elite circles. So like both elite education circles, like Silicon Valley elites, like how they are the same, how they're different, how they're interacting.
So this book, I think, it says the crisis of higher education. Higher education today has become excessively expensive, bureaucratic, and disconnected from real-world outcomes. Universities have created cycles of debt, credential chasing, and conformity, hindering true talent and flourishing. Gibson critiques university as places prioritizing research output and credentials over authentic discovery and practical breakthroughs.
It is important to say that that's like one way to package up this book. It's much more like a romp through a period of time though.
Right.
Like I don't know why, in some sense I don't know why I thought of this, because it's very different to like the book you were saying about food. It's much more like it just.
I think he's trying to like. I think the reason why is because he's trying to organize, and it sounds like he's trying to organize and categorize his experience through something very like deep.
Yeah.
And there's like tangible structural elements of it, like things that you can point to that these are components that exist. But then there's also this kind of like intuitive, street smart, pattern recognition kind of thing that serves as like a glue between it all.
Yeah.
Right. And that's helpful. I think it's this idea that like you could say, hey, here's a subject, and within this subject, here are the components that constitute this subject. Like without my perspective, here's the thing. So like there's this. Let's just get a lay of the land, right? And like here's the sandbox that you need to understand that this exists in, right? Now, I'm going to move through this sandbox, and I'm going to tell you how I see this sandbox and how it interrelates. And here's like one way of viewing it. And it's really cool because when you like consume a piece of material like that, it has like this double whammy effect where it's like it gives you the sandbox, which like now you understand what that sandbox is. You understand that this subject is a system. In that case, like taste in the case of like what you're saying, like it's kind of like this. He's really talking about learning and innovation fundamentally. It sounds like. So it's like this sandbox. It's like this is how it works, and you understand how it works, and you can take that framework, and it's cool because now you can enter it with your own subjective like experimentation, and you can see like what do I think about this? What do I think? What, like, oh, interesting. So this is this. This is this. You can see something that was you can see something that was previously maybe something you didn't understand, or something that was how do I say, foreign, I guess, and now you see it broken down into its components, and you realize that it's something that can be understood, even if you don't fully understand. It gives you the idea that this is something, even if it's complex and wide and huge, maybe magical to you, maybe like something you think you could never ever achieve or understand. Now you start to see, no, just like everything else, this does break down into a series of components.
Yeah.
And then that's awesome, because now you can, whether you agree with this person's subjective, this is how this person put all the pieces together, but now you have the opportunity to go and like put those pieces together yourself in your own way and define like your own voice.
Totally. It's like I think that is related to the sense that you can see somebody have mastery, like get to the point of having mastery over a thing.
Yeah.
And that shows you that you too can have that mastery.
For sure.
And you see one form of it, but you don't necessarily need to follow that form.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like stuff like that. Like trying to break things down into like its subsequent components like that. That's cool. But yeah. So I wonder what other examples are. I have to like look into this, but I wonder what other examples there are of like things that have like been broken down into like components like that. Yeah.
There's a writer called Brian Potter. He writes something called Construction Physics. And each of the individual posts isn't like this book on taste, where it doesn't have this kind of like full description, but you can see here his post like how the US built 5,000 ships in World War II. And he will break down into component pieces precisely what it means that the US built 5,000 ships in World War II. And he read, for this, he often posts his reading list. He'll have read 30 books for this.
That's crazy.
And he does this like every week. I have no idea how he does this. But like he has almost like this process of developing that kind of mastery over these industrial construction manufacturing processes. And I've learned a lot about what it means to develop that kind of mastery over a subject from watching his how he puts these together.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. I need to look into this.
And he has one post that he did a while back. It was I think it was in 23 sometime, which is like how I write a post or something like that.
Pull that.
How I write 24. Posts. Yeah. And last year, I for a brief period, I ran this Substack.
His page is very nice.
I wrote very briefly a Substack called Skillful Notes, and it was basically, I read this post and I was like, wait, I can do that.
Really?
But I like a different subject matter I want to do it on. I'm gonna have my own like slight stylistic differences to you in terms of how I tell stories and stuff. But I read this and I was like, oh, I can develop mastery over a topic in exactly this way. It's really I found this really useful.
So what is this process?
Massively oversimplifying. It's find everything, pick a subject, find basically everything ever written on that subject, create this.
What is this thing? Can you zoom into this image? Wait, go back. Step 1, research. Posts often require quite a bit of research and reading to do. As time has gone on, I've increasingly moved into topics that I don't have a background in. The research burden has risen. Ideally, if I've chosen a narrow enough topic, I can simply read everything of relevance ever written about it. This might seem impossible to do in a short amount of time, but surprisingly little gets written about a lot of topics I'm interested in. It's funny because he's just fucking just being an LLM. It's often more feasible than you might think. So that's the core insight. The core insight is most people believe that you cannot read everything ever written about a particular subject. And what he figured out was you can.
So like Gene Lumb is a great example of this.
Yeah.
You can probably find every book that's ever mentioned Gene Lumb.
Probably,
in the
maybe even
ever.
Hakka or chili chicken or something.
Yeah, and it's probably like for Gene Lumb, it's maybe like 10 books.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe you add on 1 or 2 extra books that are about just Chinatown in general or Chinatown in Toronto in general. It's not that hard to read 10 books, especially if that's like your full-time job. You know, you put like 3-4 hours in a day of reading things. In 2 weeks, you know everything that's ever been said about Gene Lumb.
Yeah, crazy. Some of my best posts, such as the story of titanium, the history of mobile homes, and building the Empire State Building, were ones where I was able to read or skim essentially every major text on the topic. In cases where I can't read every major source, I try to get to a point where I'm hitting, this guy's really interesting. I'd love to hear what his thoughts are on like LLMs and like thing, but go back for a second. It says, in cases where I can't read every major source, I try to get to a point where I'm hitting diminishing returns, and each new source just covers material that I've already read elsewhere. So let's like look at this thing. Is this Scrivener? What the fuck is this? Is this just like Windows?
I think it's some kind of file system, but I'm not sure.
All right, let's see. Can you zoom in on this?
On this?
Yeah, let's see what it says. Let's see. 60. I can't read that. Can you see that?
I can open up.
6.9 effect departures from ideal behavior. Departures from ideal behavior, 100 Bell Isle gas turbine PDF, advanced turbine system, blah, blah, blah. Analysis of efficiency of modern combined case study. Interesting, man. So he's like, fuck it, I'll just read this whole thing.
Yeah. And I, having followed his process for this, I see exactly what he's talking about with diminishing returns. Once you've like started to go into this, you realize really there were 3 books that were written and then hundreds of other people like quoting those 3 books.
Yeah,
and so,
interesting.
Yeah, you start to figure out what the core sources are.
Something like that would probably be really inspiring to just like make you want to write shit because you realize how much has not been written, maybe in a way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the sorts of sources I use vary. In some cases, there will be a major work or two, a book or a PhD's dissertation that covers, this is what you were saying, that covers the topic very thoroughly, and I can just read those, and a small number of supplementary stories. But more often than not, I need to piece together an explanation from many separate sources. The gas turbine post and the rise of steel post required lots of individual sources. Sometimes I'll misjudge the size of an explanation and find myself faced with an enormous literature that I struggle to pare down. The Birth of the Grid series is an example of this. What does he do with this information? Because that's like another thing. Something I wonder about, like, for example, wanting to go deep into like this Hakka food or whatever, wanting to be able to like cook it myself. Sometimes I wonder like, why the fuck do I even want to do this? You know, like why am I so inclined and like going like deep into this? One thing I think that's useful is when you go deep into something, you begin to increase the amount in which you understand it. And if you increase the amount in which you understand something, you can use that understanding in whatever else you do, whether that's directly related or not. So, for example, if you're interested in creating a chip manufacturing company, I'm assuming that going through and understanding that process deeply will improve your capacity to do that project. I wonder for people like this, like what is the reason, you know, what is the motivation for like writing these pieces?
First, if you're interested in building any kind of manufacturing, I think a good place to start is to read his post on it. Because, for instance, he's done like a 5-part post on how to build a semiconductor fab. So he has like a lot of detail on these things. So just to speak to Brian's work, I met Brian once.
Crazy.
And I think, you know, I'm just totally assuming here. I hope that he would like agree with this. He probably believes that this kind of construction work, things like how do you build a semiconductor fab, how do you build housing, how do you build electric grids, is one of, if not the most essential question for how do we create a more abundant, prosperous society? Like how do we like feed people better, house people better, that kind of thing. And he would argue, I think, that in a lot of areas, our ability to do this, especially in North America, Europe, has declined significantly.
Right.
And so he's trying to figure out a little bit of like, well, how would we do this? Like, how would we go and do this again? How would we make it so that we can build homes really cheaply? How can we make it so that we can do these things? And I know that the organization he's part of, Institute for Progress, that they're doing that on a bunch of different fronts, and they're trying to understand it at this like intellectual level and then push for like government changes where they're like, oh, this stopped working because the government did X. The government should not do X, like that kind of thing. But I know that they're closely connected to a broader Silicon Valley ecosystem of people who are actually also thinking, well, I'm just going to go and be the person building this.
Yeah.
And
this is really useful in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. So I guess it's like the value of doing this is that it could be like applied in like many different ways. You might find some inefficiencies that someone else could act on. You might get ideas for things that you want to do that yourself, or you could, by unpacking this thing, inspire somebody else to go and like do something or investigate an angle. I guess it goes back to the same thing. It's like when you take something that feels big and complex, and you strip it down to its components and then explain that or share the components with somebody else, there's something that happens in the minds of like an individual, like where you can kind of like bounce around the idea space or the problem space once you know. Like I think when you realize something can be broken down into components, you're more willing to then step up to the material and like play with it.
100%. This reminds me that the very first day that
good post.
This is an amazing post.
Yeah, for sure.
I can honestly say this post changed my life.
Yeah.
The first day that I worked at Tim Hortons, I showed up and my boss was like, we're going to have a job to recreate the website or like redesign the website or something. That's your job now. And I was like, what do I do now? Because there was no other team. I was like, it was just, he hired me to figure out how to do this. And the very first thing I ended up doing was I just created a map of every single page that was on the website.
Yeah.
I just figured out what is the website
that
it is that we're going to be recreating.
Yeah.
And it gave me a sense for this way that like, if you don't know where to start, if you don't know what you're doing, the best thing you can do is just create a map, like create a map of your surroundings. Because doing that process of like breaking it down to the component parts, how they interact, that kind of thing is probably going to
Do you still do that now? Often starting with a map?
Yeah, I'd say almost anytime I'm starting a project, I think of it as creating sketches that give me a way to navigate that project. And so it's kind of like a map. Sometimes the maps are like literal physical maps of like different parts. Sometimes it's more like conceptual maps. But I definitely think of that as like the way that I, if not run projects, certainly the way that I start a project. So
what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by like a sketch? It's like a bullet point list.
Yeah. So
or is it
I'm gonna plug something I wrote. So I wrote something called the sketch. If you do the sketch, Benjamin Parry, I think it should be the first result. Sick. I've got SEO. So this is how I describe it. If you're interested, I have a bullet point list halfway down this.
Wait, let's read some of this. I can read it, or you can read it. Do you want to read this?
Sure. I don't know if it's going to sound good. I wrote this a couple of years ago. So there's a strange paradox at the heart of modern life. We're enamored with the idea of an analytically ordered society, a society where every decision can be backed up with, quote, science. Yet at the same time, we are deeply distrustful of technology. We are skeptical of the models and methods put forward by scientists, philosophers, and religious leaders. We remain unconvinced that this progress thing was really such a great idea. This paradox is partly due to different segments of society with different agendas. On one side, the technocrats, and on the other side, the Luddites. But you also see it within individuals. The recent Netflix movie Don't Look Up is full of such contradictions.
Don't Look Up is with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I have
You rip it apart.
The protagonists are scientists whose models identify a threat to Earth, earning them the right to be our heroes. Yet, at the same time, their hero's journey ends with them giving up on scientific approach and focusing on the emotional bonds that really matter. The problem is that these two positions in the extreme are equally harmful. In general, this whole preamble, I'll talk about what I mean in the sketches actually pragmatically later, but this whole preamble is something that I think about a lot, which is that the modern world and our ability to be successful in all of the ways we are with technology and science and even non-technology and science things is based on creating these like technical systems. It's like, here's a specific technical description of the way the world works, and then we like use that as leverage to change things.
Yeah.
But the problem is that every technical description is fundamentally flawed. The world is genuinely more complex than can be captured in that specific technical
You're
system.
saying just by describing it, you're losing stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The moment you and the more precise your description, the more you risk believing that the description is in fact what's happening versus it being actually just like a partial.
So what does it matter?
Thing. I think it matters because that like being in that mode of technical describing, I think leads to both all of these gains through great technology and all of these things, but also a lot of the worst harms of the modern world, right? Like you see things like, for me, like the prototypical example is in the Great Leap Forward in China under Mao in like the 50s. There's this idea that they're going to massively increase agricultural production. And so the way that they do that is they have these ideas around the best way to do this. They're going to like get rid of all the pests. They're going to kill off all the sparrows. They're going to use they're going to use the dynamite to blow up the ground and like aerate it because that's really helpful for growing. And it turns out that their technical model of like how agriculture works was just wrong, like very wrong, and it led to just mass starvation and death.
Oh. So they outlined a plan and followed it essentially, right?
Yeah, they outlined a plan that made a lot of sense on paper, that technically looked very precise and good, and then it turned out that it was just fundamentally flawed.
Yeah.
And so I find that there's like this, it's similar to getting that feeling for when you're done with something.
Yeah.
I feel like getting that feeling for when you're using technical description effectively is like one of the essential problems of the modern world and like of how to navigate things.
So like what you got to riff on that more, like what does that mean? So what does it mean to effectively what does that mean to effectively use a technical description? So there's an example of it like not working.
Yes.
Like that example you said, here's an example of it not working. People had a vision, they had a problem that they knew that they needed to solve. They outlined specific, based on what their understanding of the world was. They said, hey, here's a plan. Here's how we're going to do it. It's detailed. It covers all what we think are all elements. Here's what we do. And it turns out that it doesn't work because you mentioned it's fundamentally flawed, which fundamentally flawed, it means like it is just the plan they outlined just didn't fucking work. Yeah. Right? And like maybe there were some incorrect assumptions when you take on, it's good on paper, but when you put it in the real world, there's a lot of data missing. There's a lot of perspective and information missing. So what's an example of it working? What's an example of like when you mentioned like?
Oh, well, I think, in some sense, most of the modern world is an example of it working, at least as we think about it. So like the fact that this microphone will take this signal, boost it, turn it in, like put it out on the internet, stream, like actually goes to different places. That's a technical description of the world that works, and it works to give us this affordance that we wouldn't otherwise have. I think an example of like a social system similar to like the Mao's one that works is maybe like vaccines, like or at least not at the margins, but like certain vaccines, like the measles vaccine, like the measles or the smallpox vaccine. The smallpox vaccine was a technical understanding of like how disease works. And how this kind of vaccination process would work to get rid of people getting the disease, And then we had a social system to say, okay, we are going to make sure everybody gets this, and we're going to both put resources in to make sure everybody gets it, as well as create like mandatory programs to force people to get it even if they don't want to, because the overall benefit to us is like so great, something like that. And so you can have these kind of like technical descriptions that are very useful, but there's a way that like you need to remain, you have a territory, the real world, and then you create your map of the territory. You need to in some way be able to use the map while remaining fully open to the territory.
Right.
So don't let the map become the territory. Like how do you like
maybe the map is wrong.
Yeah. How do you use the map without the map becoming the territory?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Why is that important? I guess that's what you're saying with that movie. Right? Is like you're saying like, hey, this group has this map and this group has this map, and they were never really willing to be flexible with their map. Is kind of what you're saying.
I'm not sure. With the movie, yes. Well, with the movie,
Don't Look Up.
With Don't Look Up, I'm actually saying that there's a. Here, I'm taking a distinction between people who are very map oriented versus people who are very like territory oriented in some sense. That the movie has this weird paradox where these people are heroes because of their map orientation. They're heroes because they have this climate model and they believe in the climate model and they push the climate model, and the climate model tells them about the world, these like true facts, and that's why they're heroes. But the ethical fulfillment of the movie, the kind of like the final the solution in the movie, the thing that makes like everything work out, is this kind of like meal that they have with friends where they love each other, and the world and they care about this territory of like the people and how they interact with them right there and then. And it's not a perfect analogy, but it felt to me like there's some kind of paradox about how we feel about map and territory in our society that's at play there, that I wanted to talk about.
For sure.
But
so what constitutes a sketch?
Yeah. So in this idea, I talk about basically this idea that one way to avoid this map territory problem when you are actually starting on a project is to have what I'm calling like a sketch. Yeah. Where a sketch is like, it's you could think of it as literally like marks on a piece of paper that extend your ability to think about a particular project without the marks actually being taken seriously as the project itself. So I think all of this stuff on all of these whiteboards, I think of as sketches. So you're like starting to like talk to somebody. You're like, okay, I can't actually explain this in words well enough to like make progress on this project. But here's like a random throwaway thing that it's not going to be important 2 hours from now once we've actually made progress. But this gets us to that next kind of level of mapness of what's going on here. Yeah. And so I think about trying to, whenever I'm like taking the next step in defining a project, it's always, I think of it in terms of like a progression of sketches.
Yeah, that's like, what you mean by sketch.
Yeah. And so it could be bullet point lists. It could
be drawings, maps, diagrams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's not, one of the key things is that it should be ephemeral. It should be like, you should be using it for now. It shouldn't be like a final technical description that's gonna, like this essay, I say, isn't a sketch because I expect this to last for a very long time. It's like a product in some sense. But I used a sketch in process of creating this where I did a bullet point list at one point to try and understand the different sections of this essay I wanted to write.
It's good. A good sketch is the right level of fidelity. It includes just enough information to move to the next step, to make clear what needs to be done, to turn the idea into a shared model, or coordinate a group towards collective action. A good sketch provides enough form to be debated. If there's not enough substance for anyone to disagree, then it doesn't have enough meaningful information. So it should take a stance, you're saying?
Yeah.
A good sketch is transient. After the intended action is accomplished, the sketch loses its purpose for anyone except future historians. Right? A good sketch will be made using the right tool for the job. Sometimes this means, what is your tool set? We should eat soon too.
Yeah.
We have cutlery. Yeah.
For me, tools. My most common tools are words and drawings. I don't. I don't have the depth with code or equations or maths to make great progress there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's eat now, man.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Should we wrap on this one? It's 1:54 p.m.
It's basically
This was the day.
4 hours.
What?
That's basically 4 hours, right?
No, not 4.
10 to
3.5.
Yeah, 3.5.
All right,
Yeah.
10:30ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
I'm tired.
Let's end, man.
All right.
Hakka.
Let's go.
There you go, man. You did it. You lasted.